90.5.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Sajifo Dr. Nkrumah.
Ago when you come with Makasa Kakra, and so when you come when Tiam Kakra, Menkasapi, Damapa Makade, Bakans Bakakran, and Yamakan Fancy. At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. And here again, I want to take the opportunity to thank the chiefs and people of this country, the youth, the farmers, the women, who have so nobly fought and won this battle. Also, I want to thank the valiant ex-servicemen who have so cooperated with me in this mighty task of freeing our country from foreign rule and imperialism. And as I pointed out at our party conference at Sorbonne, I made it quite clear that from now on
we must
90.5 change our attitudes, our minds. We must realize that from now on we are no more a colonial but a free and independent people. But also, as I pointed out, that also entails hard work. I am depending upon the millions of the country, the chiefs and people, to help me to reshape the destiny of this country. We are prepared to build it up and make it a nation that will be respected by every other nation in the world. We know we are going to have difficult beginnings, but again, I am relying upon your support. I'm relying upon your hard work. Seeing you in these thousands, it doesn't matter how far my eye goes. I can see that you are here in your millions. And my last warning to you is that you ought to stand firm behind us so that we can prove to the world that when the African is given a chance, he can show to the world that he's somebody. We shall no more go back to sleep anymore. Today, from now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that, after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. We are going to demonstrate to the world, to the other nations, young as we are, that we are prepared to lay our own foundation. As I said in the assembly just a minute ago, I made it point that we are going to say that we create our own African personality and identity. It's the only way in which we can show the world that we are ready for our own battle. But today, may I call upon you all that at this great day, Let us all remember that nothing in the world can be done unless it has the purported support of God. We have done the battle, and we again rededicate ourselves not only in the struggle to emancipate other territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Let us now, fellow Ghanaians, let us now ask for God's blessing. And for only 2 seconds, in your thousands and millions, I want to ask you to pause only for 1 minute and give thanks to Almighty God for having led us through obstacles, difficulties, imprisonment, hardship and suffering to have brought us to the end of our trouble today.
To lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him.
It's 9 o'clock here on your power station Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Saturday, 4th of November 2017 is the day we find ourselves in. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk show. Here we say it as it is without mincing words. We talk tough with only one thing at the back of our minds: the truth and nothing but the truth. I hope your morning has started well, because this morning we have so much to discuss. This morning there is so much to talk about. This morning there is so much perspective to be shared on the show today. As always, we'll take a retrospective look of some of the issues that dominated the conversation throughout the entire week. And I think this week, one person took center stage in the media discourse, and that has to do with Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador George A.C. Boateng, per his utterances at the TESCON gathering, where he said that he will prioritize NPP members over any other Ghanaian, and that all Ghanaians are not the same. NPP folks are more Ghanaian than other Ghanaians. This made him receive a lot of backlash from the general citizenry. People started calling for his head, that he should resign or His Excellency the President must fire him. It was somewhere around Wednesday or Thursday that we heard that he had been invited to the Flagstaff House. After that, we saw an apology being rendered by the High Commissioner to South Africa. That matter, has it ended or not? Because the minority in Parliament are saying that they are dissatisfied with the apology that he has rendered, and that His Excellency the President must compel him to resign. They are not the only people dissatisfied with the apology of the High Commissioner. I have seen many Ghanaian civil society groups who have called for the ambassador to be sacked by His Excellency the President. Would we, in the days ahead of us, see Ambassador or High Commissioner George A.C. Boateng lose his job? We wait to see. That's not the only matter that dominated the conversation. We had splash on the front page of one of the papers within the week. A story that was speaking about how, some guest house had been constructed for the former President John Dramani Mahama, who is supposed to belong to Cocoa Board, and the responses and the feedback that came. There's also been some concerns about, the happenings when it comes to the school feeding program. The old caterers of the school feeding program are dissatisfied with the utterances of the minister, who has made the point that, look, they are paying the money and they will take their time to go through the processes in paying them, but they cannot be frustrated by the old caterers to pay the monies. The concerns of these caterers, I believe, were heard live here on the show as we conducted an interview with them, and they explained their position that they want the whole amount paid out to them. There were other very interesting stories as well that dominated the conversation throughout the entire week, but this week and today, we intend to focus our attention on the statement of High Commissioner George A.C. Boateng. So would we also focus our attention on the response by the office of the former President John Dramani Mahama to allegations of the construction of a Cocoa Research Institute guest house for his personal use, and if possible, analyze the political unrest in Togo and the role of ECOWAS to averting any political instability in Togo. Those are the issues we are tabling for discussion this morning on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. As always, I take the time to bring you up to speed with the latest news items on the front pages of the papers we do have with us in the studio. If you look on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, they have a picture of the former Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board. It's got a picture of Dr. Stephen Opuni, and it says, Opuni for court over Cocoa Board loot. Also, boy 22 kills sister at Medina. And Nana blames African leaders over integration. Also, 7 Sisala West NPP activists granted bail. That's on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. You will find on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper a picture of His Excellency the President, and it says, let's set up power market in West Africa. Also, Professor Francis Alote passes on very sad news. I heard that yesterday. And Finance Minister pledges monthly salary for Bible translation. Let me see if I can read a bit of that story to your hearing. What's this story about? All right. It says that the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, has pledged to commit his monthly salary for the next 3 years to the translation of the Bible. Okay. That's his personal money. I thought that was state money. Government forms task force to deal with vigilantism. That's on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. You'll find on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper the banner headline, Accounts Officer of GRA in trouble over 310,000 Ghana cedis embezzlement case. Also, Education Minister calls on accountants to uphold integrity. And police need 28,000 more personnel to meet UN benchmark. That's all captured on the front page of the paper. And finally, you have on the front page of the Spectator newspaper a very beautiful picture of Lydia Forson, and one of the finest in the movie industry, in some green outfits. And that's the caption on the front page of the paper. I'm sure I would keep a copy of this paper for my brother Peter Bamfo, who will join me on Monday morning. So he takes a look at the front page of the Spectator newspaper. Alhaji, you can see the picture, it's nice. So I have to reserve it for Peter Bamfo on Monday morning. The Spectator again has the picture.
I'm sure Peter should be smiling.
Oh, I'll keep it for him. He will enjoy the picture. On the front page again of the paper, tattoo causes skin infections. That's according to a dermatologist. And the Spectator adjudged the literary friendly newspaper for 2017. Those are the headlines of the newspapers that I have with me this morning on the show. As always, this is the most interactive show you would listen to every Saturday morning between now and 12 midday. And so your thoughts, your views, and your comments play a very important role in our discourse. Therefore, we always encourage you to send yours across. And you can easily do so by looking for me on Twitter and then on Facebook using the handle at Samuel Ishen GH. Samuel Ishen GH. It's all spelled together, and the Ishen is spelled ESHUN. That's how you find me on Facebook and Twitter. You find me there, you add me or you follow me, and you start sending your messages across. What I've realized is most of you do not either add me or follow me, but you start sending the messages, and it takes a long while, maybe a week or two, before I realized there was some backlog of messages that I had not seen because we are not friends. So you add me first, and then you start sending the messages. So that's by way of joining the conversation. But I must say that this show is listened to live across the world on our website www.radiogold905.com. So can you monitor us live on the TuneIn application? Search for Radio Gold 90.5. You will find us there. And then also, can you go to the Google Play Store and search for Radio Gold 90.5? You will see that the application with our logo colors is there. Just download that application, install it on your phone, and most certainly you will be able to listen to us live anywhere you find yourself in the world. For those who would not have the opportunity to listen to us, well, you can listen to us live on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5. There are also affiliate radio stations that pick this feed live on their networks. And for that matter, I speak of Radio Pandom 102.5 in Pandom, Sekpele FM 104.3 in Likpe, Shine FM 96.9 in Akachi, GFM Radio in London, and other networks as well that pick the feed on their networks as well. This morning, to help me with our discussions, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. He is the managing editor of the Insight newspaper. Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, former MP for Nanton and Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry. Also, Alhaji A.B.A. Husseini, MP for Sanarugu, and Professor Nino Dowena, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana. They help me to discuss thoroughly the cause by some section of Ghanaians that George Ayisi Boateng, Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, must resign after he apologized for his divisive comments. Also, would we look at the response by the office of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, to allegations of the construction of Cocoa Research Institute guest house for his private personal use. Analyze the political unrest in Togo and the role of ECOWAS to avert any political instability in Togo. That's by way of introduction to the show this morning. Alhaji, good morning.
Good morning. Let me say a very good morning to the listeners across the world. Radio Gold's Alhaji And Alhaji flagship program on March. Undoubtedly the talk show of the moment in Ghana. Let me also take the opportunity once again to say a good morning to my respected people of the Sanarugu constituency, the Blichina people of the Sanarugu constituency, and to the people of Northern region as a whole. Sammy, I've always said that, you see, you cannot groom monsters today and expect to peacefully coexist with poodles tomorrow. The monsters you breed today will come after you tomorrow. That's why we have always said that if you transform your son into a monster, you'll be among the first to be devoured. And today, I'm sure what is going on with this unprecedented spate of lawlessness and now crass nepotism across the country, where even people who are supposed to be diplomats, who are tutored, who are oriented in the choice, even in the most difficult circumstances, with words that are edifying, with words that are properly sanitized, decorous, today are speaking worse than the most untutored, the most uncultured persons. So it's not surprising that we are getting these things. But Sami, let me first and foremost take this opportunity to make a very important clarification or distinction. You see, the MPP in particular has operated upon a very false assumption or premise that the state is coterminous with the MPP. You're operating on the false assumption that having been given the mandate of Ghanaians to steer the affairs of state, it is equal to the MPP having an unfettered access, the MPP as a political party, having an unfettered access, control, and direction of state institutions. And for that matter, they have an unfettered right to allocate resources to MPP members without any let or hindrance, and that is within the ambit of the law. So that is how they proceed. So I don't know whether you understand the point I'm trying to divert. They think that having one political power, it is a matter of right for the MPP to drive policy and positions to satisfy their members, and that is the legal remit within which the state confers that authority on them. Nothing could be far from right, from the right in terms of the statement I made, and then wrong in terms of the MPP's perception. So I mean, when a political party brings forth a government, and that's why sometimes a clear distinction has to be made between the party and the government. And especially in the case of the president, when the president goes to swear an oath, and I will go there very shortly. When the president goes to swear an oath, he swears an oath to protect the entirety of the country, not the members of his political party who campaign for him to win power. I told you, you get me?
Yeah.
So that's why there's a conscious attempt to make a distinction between the two. And so it is important for our colleagues on the other side of the divide to get it right. That there's a clear-cut distinction between the state and the NPP as a political party. When they fail to get that, that is why they intrude into this space of the state and think that it is a matter of their bona fide right for the state so exclusively to confer benefits on only members of the New Patriotic Party, and that all other Ghanaians don't have a similar right. So you see, it is from that mistaken belief that for the first time in our political history, Sammy, I'm hearing this for the first time, where under the government of Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia, we have a new political lexicon of two sets of Ghanaians. One group of inferior Ghanaians who are second-rate citizens, and another group of superior Ghanaians who are first-class citizens of the state, who are more Ghanaian than other Ghanaians. It is incredible. We have already seen the debasement of our politics under this government, but this is the lowest we are sinking. And for me, Sami, it is a matter of concern for us. Now, what is it that Mr. Yisi Boateng has said? I've heard people say that Yisi Boateng has not said anything extraordinary, and that he has not done anything extraordinary to warrant this public outcry. Sami, I want to believe that before he made his pronouncement before the TESCON members, he had harbored this belief. Indeed, he might have even acted in ways that would lend support to the belief that he has harbored. So to the extent that it remained in his head, Sami, before the utterances that he made, it was not a public issue. Am I lying? It became a public issue when he went to address them at a public forum, where, to the best of my understanding, there might have been media people or other persons who could report on the matter. It has always been my position that, you see, what you cannot defend publicly, don't say it even privately, even in the presence of another person. Because ultimately, when it comes to the public domain, you'll be exposed, you'll be bruised, you'll be humiliated, your image will be dented, you'll be denigrated. So, Sami, my position is that Mr. Yisi Boateng, what he said was nothing more than a glorification of lawlessness. And I will show why I say it's a glorification of lawlessness. It constitutes an egregious breach of our constitution and the laws of this country. It was nothing short of bigotry, political chicanery, and Sami, one of the most divisive statements that this country has ever come to witness. A situation where Ghanaians can even be divided into superior citizens and inferior citizens, first class and second class citizens, Ghanaian and more Ghanaian people. This has introduced a very dangerous political lexicon in our political dispensation. And now, let's come to what he said. And when I was coming, I listened to the thing that you played. And in part of that speech he made, he said that if I have my way, I will make sure that every job, listen, he did not even say some of the jobs. He said that if he had his way, he will make sure that every job will be given to a TESCON member. So I'm sorry, after this one, we can play that for the record for people to take note. He will give every job to a TESCON member. Now, this, for me, lays bare the underpinnings of the understanding of the envoy to South Africa about his role in that country. I want to believe that when His Excellency the President makes appointments of ambassadorial and high commissioner positions and other things, at least even if the person is as raw, he was dug from the F raw, they will take him to him or her to an orientation seminar. They go through some orientation seminars where they are properly briefed about their new calling, what their new offices entail, so that even previously, if you were a loose talking person in the public domain, you are now exalted to the honorable position of either an ambassador or a high commissioner, for which the title appropriately, His Excellency, is attached to your name. And so you are now in a venerated position, say that even in the most difficult of circumstances, Sami, you are to couch your diction, your choice of words will be one that is edifying, will be one that will exude maturity, will be one that will say be so commonsensical that even the disadvantage and the privilege down there would appreciate the language in a very difficult situation that you find yourself, and see that this is truly a very mature person. Not to even talk about the age of Mr. Yisi Boateng. In our society, Sami, the older you grow, the more people expect that you have acquired a certain level of experience and maturity, especially with your speech. That when you open your mouth, the words that will come out is one that will lend credence to the fact that this is a very mature person. The Dagombes have a saying that when an elder is in the house, the grain will not be allowed to be soaked by the rain. Collective wisdom, you will get the grain collected. That is the essence of age. That as you mature in age, you mature in speech, you mature in the handling of situations that would be edifying. And so, Sami, for me, this speech by, I find it very difficult to call him the Excellency, because I belong to the philosophy that nobody is entitled to a false reputation. What Mr. Yisi Boateng has done doesn't portray him one bit as a diplomat. And so I think he doesn't deserve the title His Excellency. But Sami, let's leave that aside. My beef, first and foremost, in our governance structure, comes with not just what he said, but after what he said, what has happened with the appointing authority. In this case, His Excellency the President. And I'll come back to Yisi Boateng's apology and others. Sami, on the 7th of January this year, at the Independence Square, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo swore the oath of office, oath of allegiance and other oaths before the good people of this country. And among the oaths, one of the first that came, Sami, was that he swore to protect the constitution of the republic of this republic, which created his office and also accorded him powers. He swore to uphold the constitution, and that should he fail to uphold the constitution and the laws of this country, he should pay the penalty. So I mean, he further swore to work in such a diligent manner that no single Ghanaian will be discriminated against. That he was going to protect Ghanaians from discrimination on grounds of race, ethnicity, religion, political party affiliation or coloration. No Ghanaian under his watch would be discriminated against on those grounds. Sammy, his appointee, his envoy to the Republic of South Africa, comes and flaunts this in the face of the president. That, Mr. President, notwithstanding all those things that you have said, I don't believe in that. I have come and I want to segregate. And I'm not too sure whether he was caught in the back of South Africa where they had this racist apartheid philosophies that existed before South Africa was fully liberated from the choking grips of apartheid. But, Sammy, he chose to indicate that he, Mr. A.E.C. Boateng, does not believe in Ghanaians as a monolithic group of equal citizens with inalienable rights and freedoms. He doesn't believe in the equality of Ghanaians. And that as far as he's concerned, his duty is to make sure that jobs are exclusively, and it is in his statement, exclusively given to MPP people. The rest of Ghanaians don't matter as far as he's concerned. So he says this. So compare and contrast what the president has sworn to protect, what the president has indicated he's there to protect, and to even say that he also wants to assert the status of being a father for all, versus what A.E.C. Boateng has done. And then come to the conclusion that there has been a very shocking silence. The silence of the presidency on this matter has been deafening. Not a single comment. We are in 1 week after the statement was made. Sammy? Yeah. Not a single statement from the presidency. Not a single thing from His Excellency the President to tell Ghanaians that not only do I disagree with my appointee, I take serious exception to his conduct. And we want to send a signal to the rest of my appointees that I will not take any attempt to sow the seeds of acrimony and divisions in this country, to divide Ghanaians into citizens and second-rate citizens, superior and inferior citizens, more Ghanaian and less Ghanaian. That, Sammy, for me, would have been a signal. I would have thought that within 24 hours after this statement was made public, the president should not have waited. Because anybody listening to this is abundantly clear. And this is not a statement that he made under duress. No gun was put to his head for him to be there. He made it voluntarily and willfully before the TESCON members. So, Sammy, this man should not have lasted in that position after 24 hours. He should have been fired. And not only fired for me, he should be fired and evacuated from South Africa. Sammy, if this man, and that is why I took my time to try and make a distinction between the state and the party. Mr. A.E.C. Boateng may be very good for TESCON. He can be an accomplished advocate for TESCON and other institutions within the MPP. But as a diplomat for this country, it's a total disaster. And so my take is that it will be better for this government to remove him forthwith, bring him back to Ghana, and if they want to set up a TESCON desk at the MPP headquarters, they can set up a TESCON desk at the MPP headquarters and make him the coordinator, and nobody will have any qualms with that, because that will be perfectly within their party structure to run, but not with state resources. Not with the position of the Republic of Ghana. He is not in South Africa as the new patriotic party envoy to South Africa. He is not the High Commissioner of MPP to South Africa. He is the High Commissioner of Ghana to South Africa. So he cannot arrogate to himself the unfettered right to use the resources of the commission and others to solely protect the interests of MPP members, TESCON members. That is a brazen violation of the laws. And if you look at our constitution, it has been violated by his speech in many material respects. 1735, many aspects of our constitution have been violated through his decision. And the president is sworn to protect the constitution. And his appointee is violating the constitution and the laws of our country with impunity. And nothing is happening. So I mean, that is why I say that if the chief himself goes for a weird haircut, what would the young man do? If in the face of this, such very egregious violation of our laws and the constitution of this republic, His Excellency the President is silent. What signal is he sending down to our people about obeisance to our laws? And Sami, let me come to the issue of the apology. Sami, both the good old books, the Bible and the Quran, say that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if somebody willingly and willfully and voluntarily issues out some words from a distance without any compulsion, that is something deep inside him. And I have no doubt in my mind that what Mr. Yisi Boating said is what he deeply believes. That's his conviction. And indeed, Sami, when he said that, after about 72 hours, when there was this chorus of anger across the country, Ghanaians were visibly angry with what had happened. Why? He was given an opportunity, even on air, to clear, to retract, and apologize. I'm sure some of you can remember what his response was. He said he stood by every word that he had said, and that he didn't see any wrong he had done. And for that matter, nobody deserves an apology from him. Nobody should expect even an apology from him. It will never happen. Over 72 hours after he had made that statement. And that anybody who disagree with him can go bend the sea. He is not going to proffer an iota of an apology to anybody. Sami, that's why I say from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The man told us deep inside him, there is no element of remorse. Even after 72 hours, when there was outcry across the country about his nation-wrecking statement, he did not find a place in his heart to feel remorseful. He only took the opportunity to even inflict Ghanaians with his unsavory nation-wrecking comment. So what happens? You wait until he is summoned to the Flagstaff House. After a meeting at the Flagstaff House, then a statement follows that he has apologized to Ghanaians. So I mean, I've always said that if the hyena house and the goat is missing, you don't have to ask who caught it again. It's clear. The hyena was in the vicinity, the goat is missing. The hyena most probably caught the goat. A.C. Boating had an opportunity to apologize, to retract and apologize to the good people of this country. He was offered a decent platform to do so on his own volition. Not only did he turn it down, he treated it with contempt, treated Ghanaians with contempt. So what transpired is nothing more than a belated, half-hearted, hypocritical apology, for me, uttered by the Flagstaff House. It's a Flagstaff House apology. The man is being coaxed, cajoled, and prevailed upon to sign that decision because government and the presidency was unduly coming under attack and pressure as a result of his uncouth utterances. So that is no apology. Sammy, I've always said that, say to err is human. Every human makes mistakes. We are all fallible. And so when you err and you show genuine remorse and you follow up with the apology, I should think it should be accepted. But when you seek through such insincere acts, such hypocritical acts as he's doing, it's an insult to the integrity of Ghanaians. It's an insult to our collective will as a people who are enjoined to enforce our own laws. So to that extent, that apology is not worth the paper it's written on. It's a sham. And I believe that many Ghanaians have since spoken since the so-called empty apology that he rendered. And if you listen to the consensus around, there's overwhelming response of Ghanaians to the effect that this man, not only should the apology be rejected, he should be sacked. That he has no business staying in the South African High Commission 1 more minute. He should be sacked and evacuated back to Ghana. Sammy, today, why? Look, Ghana is a respected member of the international community. Sammy, not only are we an oasis of peace, order, stability, and a democratic beacon in the West African sub-region, Ghana is also respected for the quality, first-class quality diplomats Ghana has produced. You can talk about the Kofi Annans, Ambassador Kote, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers. You talk about James Philip Beo. You are talking about accomplished diplomats who are respected in the ranks of the international community. So I mean, just oppose that against what we're having from this verbal diarrhea High Commissioner. Ghana is today a laughing stock in the ranks of the international community. They said that, so in spite of our boast, in spite of the boast of the MPP, that they have the men. So these are the quality of diplomats they can assemble. That a diplomat doesn't even know how to even catch decent words. I can tell you, even the situation in the TESCON that he got, if you get a very seasoned diplomat and he goes before TESCON, he can couch words that are edifying and decent, and that can still make some semblance of the point that he wanted to make. So it tells you that Mr. Boateng is not cut for diplomacy. He's best a manager of food soldiers in the party headquarters. He's in the wrong profession. He's in the wrong office. And I think His Excellency the President should have even seen this long before even some of us. That he made the wrong choice. That even in his own name, because he is also his representative in South Africa. So can you imagine what this man can do at a gathering of his fellow diplomats when they go there? He can go and say something which will be more or less than a bombshell. And Ghana will be so badly humiliated that our image and integrity will be gone. So today, the MPP has scored one more point, that they can go and bring us shambolic envoys like this to represent the country outside.
All right.
So, Sami, I want to say without any iota of hesitation, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the buck stops with you. You swore an oath that you are going to protect not only the constitution of this republic, but that to prevent discrimination against any Ghanaian. And so if it is not even far away, your own appointees today have stated in no uncertain terms their unfettered desire to force discrimination in this country, to segregate this country, to divide this country, to polarize further this country into superior and inferior Ghanaian citizens. I think that the most decent thing to do is to fire him. I am finding it intriguing that the president is finding it very difficult to fire Mr. Yisi Boateng. I don't know what the fetters are on him, but it is no longer about his personal relationship with Mr. Yisi Boateng or whoever. It is about the national interest of Ghana. It is about upholding the laws and constitution of this republic, which are higher than him and higher than any other citizen of this republic. And that calling is bigger than any personal relationship.
All right.
And so we should do the right and honorable thing and fire Mr. Yisi Boateng, bring him back to the country, and if they want to send him to the MPP headquarters to take care of TESCON members, so be it.
All right.
That should be done.
Thank you very much, Alhaji ABA Fuseni, for your submission on our first topic for discussion, which has to do with the call by some section of Ghanaians on His Excellency the President to compel Mr. George A.C. Boateng to resign. Comrade, good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your cherished listeners, and good morning to my senior colleagues here. And of course, good morning to the good people of Nantong constituency. Ishan, I think that a lot has been said about this. I think we need to also have an appreciation a little, particularly a lot of people who may not know the functions of a diplomat, and more specifically, the leader of the diplomatic mission of any country in the receiving state. It is also important to put in context that there isn't any difference, strictly speaking, between who is a diplomat or who is a high commissioner and who is an ambassador. I have monitored a lot of radio stations and have listened with profound amusement the kind of contributions that people have made, and I can understand that many people think that an ambassador is entirely different from a high commissioner. They play the same functions. The reason why we have some people called high commissioners and some ambassadors is the fact that in the Commonwealth State of Nations, and Commonwealth here we are talking about territories that were previously under the British colony, and which are made up of about 52 states as we speak. And somewhere in 1946, a decision was taken to take away the British and call them British Commonwealth of Nations, and subsequently it became Commonwealth of Nations. So that is why you have Nigeria, their representative in Ghana, or the head of the Nigerian mission in Ghana is not called an ambassador, he is called a higher commissioner. If you take a countries that were never under the British colony, take Togo for instance, you don't have the ambassador for Togo called the higher commissioner. He's called an ambassador from Togo. And I think that is what I just want to put in perspective. Why you have some people called high commissioners and some called ambassadors. Heads of missions who are sent by one Commonwealth state to another Commonwealth state, they are known as high commissioners. And when you have, like Ghana sends our heads of mission to South Africa, he is called a higher commissioner. South Africa also sends DS to Ghana. He's called the Higher Commissioner, because we are all Commonwealth. We are all members of the Commonwealth State of Nations. If we send our mission, head of our mission to Togo, they won't call him a Higher Commissioner. Togo sends their head of mission to Ghana. They won't call him a Higher Commissioner. They call him an ambassador. Now, we also need to understand in context the responsibilities of High Commissioners, or if you like, ambassadors. In this case, we are dealing with our High Commissioner, who is supposed to be representing Ghana in South Africa. Now, there is an international treaty known as the Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations. And the Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations was something that was couched as a result of, if you like, the First and the Second World War that we experienced, that you had people could be killed, or people who were sent on missions could be killed, could be molested, could be treated in a way that they didn't have certain immunities in this case, certain protections. Now, if you take the 1992 Constitution, there are some immunities or privileges that are given to certain selected individuals in the discharge of their duties and responsibilities. Now, the Vienna Convention of 1961 was specifically to provide some protection for diplomats, or if you like, high commissioners and ambassadors and the entire mission, that are not all of them enjoy the same immunities, but the ambassador or the high commissioner, who is the head of the mission, he enjoys to a very large extent some kind of immunities of protection, to the extent that even the residents, and let me also put in context, it's not all high commissions or embassies that you have the residents completely immune. In fact, in some instances you may not have them, but be it as it may, to the extent of which even the residence of the ambassador, the office of the high commission or the embassy has some immunities, that even if someone kills and run into the High Commission, the receiving state, the country in which the High Commission is residing or is operating, the receiving state cannot get in there and arrest the person. I mean, note a point can be made of Assange today. Yeah. He is in a different embassy, I think the Ecuadorian, right? Yeah. Embassy in London. the British government, the American government, they can't go and get him. And he's been there, I guess, for over 5 years now. And he's been there. It tells you the kind of protection. And that is the reason why the ambassadors or high commissioners are addressed as your excellencies. You are addressed as excellency because you are not a president. But in the receiving state, you represent the president of the republic. You represent the vision. You represent the spirit. You represent the pride of the sending country. So if you have our high commissioner in South Africa, he represents His Excellency President Nana Addo in South Africa, the residence in which he lives, the office in which he operates, the vehicle that he uses. All those items have some immunities, just like the president who lives in Ghana, and per our individual or Ghanaian constitution who enjoys some immunities. I mean, that is how important the office of a high commissioner or ambassador is. Now, let's look at the functions and the duties of a high commissioner. That to promote its own country's culture, its economy, its science, that is very critical. Another important aspect of the functions and responsibilities of a high commissioner or ambassador also is to ensure that there is a representing the interest and the protection of the sending state. In this case, His Excellency, is it IC? What's the name? George IC Boateng. He represents the interests of Ghana. His interest there is to protect the interests of Ghana, to protect the citizens of Ghana living in South Africa. The Vienna Convention didn't say protect the citizens of a particular party members. And in fact, in our constitution and per the practice and standard, never said anywhere that your responsibility is to protect the interests or citizens or some citizens rather than others. By your statement, by your action, by your deeds, you will have no option than to protect the interests of every single citizen of yours who live in a country that you operate as higher commissioner. And it is very important. Now, when you have such statements being made, when you have statements that are being made by someone who ought to have known what he succeeded in doing is nothing but creating more division, not only in Ghana, but most importantly and disastrously in South Africa. He has succeeded, like the MPP have always done, in barricading the cohesion, the unity that is supposed to be existing between us with hate and scorn. And that is precisely what he has succeeded in doing. The extent to which you have every single citizen who lives in the country you reside or operate as a high commissioner should feel at liberty to meet you, the ambassador or the high commission, to tell you their private and personal problems if they feel that the private problems and personal problems that they have, if nothing is being done, can lead to their suffering some consequences. And that is how critical that position is. Now, having worked as a deputy minister and having traveled representing Ghana in many countries in the world, and haven't dealt with high commissions, and haven't had interactions, and in some instances you go there, you find the high commissioners or the ambassadors dealing with problems, individual and private problems of citizens who live in those countries. The extent to which even family matters, there are sections within the embassies and the high commissions across the world who deal with private family matters. When nothing is being done, can lead to some consequences. It tells you how it is stretched for you to have that absolute responsibility and deal with every single individual without any problem. But I am not surprised. And let me state that Honorable ABF is saying a statement that, look, everybody knew the president and the government was not going to do anything. And I stated this on Metro TV Good Morning Ghana, that I will never be surprised if nothing happens about this. And I stated that we should not be surprised to see the NPP grouping around like a drunk that came home after a long night of partying, looking for a bed, and by so doing, looking for a means to kill this story. And that is precisely what they did. And the second issue that we are going to be discussing, when in the eyes of all this dangerous statement being made, what they did was to use the chief executive of Cocoa Board to peddle palpable lies, all in an attempt to kill this international and national embarrassment. And by so doing, they use section of the media, which unfortunately has become a citadel of cover-up by the mess that we experience in this country. And we would come to that story. Now, our High Commissioner lives in a country that has recently a history of xenophobic attack. And as we see today, we still experience unreported xenophobic attacks in South Africa. And those xenophobic attacks are not attacks against people outside Africa. They are attacks against Africans. Now, if you have an ambassador who lives in a country where you have a history, a recent history of xenophobic attacks, and that ambassador comes out to make a public pronouncement that yes, in the eyes of all the dangers that our citizens in South Africa may indeed be encountering, I still would want to treat certain individuals as special and treat others no. Now, when Honorable Okujeto, the ranking member for Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament, when he made that statement that either the man jumps or be pushed, I knew he wasn't going to jump, and I also knew that he wasn't going to be pushed. Let us also not just blame the man. Let's understand the psyche, the position of the president and the government. He certainly couldn't have made that statement and came out and defended the statement regardless the public outcry against it when he didn't know that it was the position of the government. He certainly couldn't have made that statement because he made the statements, and 24 hours after the statement, he was everywhere defending the statement. Eshon, there are two things. Either the president is not in charge in the governance of this country, or he simply doesn't care what anybody says. Because clearly, if the government was in charge, having been a diplomat himself, because he has ever been a foreign minister of this country, now the first thing one would expect is that the moment that statement was made and it became public, and every single individual in this country who matters and reasons condemns that statement, I thought the first thing the Flagged House would have done was that they would have called him to find out whether indeed he made that statement and the consequences therein. Now, I shudder to think that he was called, and I shudder to think that he was informed that we are not going to do anything about it. Because why? If you make a statement that attracted a huge condemnation by every single well-meaning Ghanaian at that time, yet you went on radio saying emphatically that I stand by the statement I have made and that I am not going to apologize for any of such statement. Subsequently, you are apologizing. Now, I think that either he apologized under duress, because I want to believe that he is an honorable member, I want to believe that he is an excellency, and he would have known the consequences of the statement, and for which reason he said that he was never going to apologize for that statement, only for him to render an apology through a statement that is issued. I want to believe that he might have done that out of duress. He might have done that out of face saving of this government. And if His Excellency the President is in charge, then this man must be pushed because he's not prepared to jump. But if the President is not in charge, and I want to believe that he is not in charge, that is the reason why this man is still in office. Tell me one single serious minded individual or organization in Ghana that hasn't condemned this statement. Now, how would Ghanaian community who necessarily are not in NDC or not NDC sympathizers, but also not MPP sympathizers, how would they feel dealing with the High Commission of Ghana in South Africa? Now, the argument and the debate, sadly, has been reduced to be NDC against NPP. It goes beyond NDC and NPP. The presumption is that the only people who exist in South Africa are followers of these two political parties. There are CPP members or sympathizers who live in South Africa. There are PPP sympathizers who live in South Africa. There are NDP sympathizers who live in South Africa. There are PNC sympathizers who live in South Africa. And in fact, there are people who necessarily do not engage in partisan politics, ordinary Ghanaian, academics, businessmen, individuals who live in South Africa who necessarily do not believe or support any of the political parties, but they are citizens of the Republic of Ghana residing in South Africa. You must be a citizen of Ghana first and foremost before you belong to a political party. Now, how would those people feel living and knowing that their president in South Africa, the person they look up to, the person who has a responsibility and a moral duty to protect their lives, their families, their interests, their business interests, how will they feel dealing with the person when he publicly stated, because even if he said it in secrecy, it is now public. He stated that his priority is to deal with NPP people and TESCON people. When he stated that. Now, if I live in South Africa and I don't belong to any of the political parties, I don't see why and how I can deal with such a higher commissioner. Yet, the president sees nothing wrong with that statement, and this man is still at post. God save this country. But I am saying that those people who are now shouting, they should just keep quiet and enjoy the ride. All these issues were raised. We live in a country where a bosom friend of the president, perhaps a childhood friend of the president, a leading member of the NPP in the person of Kofi Kumsen, or the name, the Chronicle man, who publicly stated that I can't sleep, I cannot blink, I cannot close my eye to see Nana Addo being the president of the Republic of Ghana. This was a heavy statement because he has since not explained to us why. Perhaps these were some of the things that he was seeing. They attempt and they succeeded in barricading this country, dividing us along serious political lines, dividing us along ethnic lines, dividing us along social stratifications, that we sit down, we look at each other in scorn. We have succeeded in doing that in Ghana, and you have no problem doing same in South Africa, in a country that there is a recent history of xenophobic attack in which hundreds of people were maimed and killed. Now, if there is a problem, may God forbid, in South Africa today, I believe his interest would be that let's take care of the the TESCON and the MPP members. But you know one interesting thing? Let's interrogate even the statement further. He mentioned one Baumia, whom he said is also a TESCON member working with him there, and that he was the TESCON president. Mention one, is it Martin, another person he mentioned? Yes, whom he brought to South Africa. And the question I ask is that, were they sent there as representatives of Ghana, as employees of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or they were sent there to help this man execute his divisive agenda, his corn, plant the seed of corn among Ghanaians in South Africa? I think that we should not be calling for this man to be fired. Those two gentlemen ought not be there. If they were employees of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they should be called back and be given different assignments. Because it wouldn't make any sense that this man is being asked to get off or push down if he refuses to jump, which is very clear he won't jump, that we would leave those two people whom he himself admitted and stated that he's in this unholy business with them. Now he also said that he was able to secure a visa for somebody. That when he went there and he felt that there wasn't a kind of job he would want the guy to do, I don't think he's fit to be our representative in South Africa. He doesn't have the intellectual capacity to represent us. Let people not get this wrong. I don't care the number of certificates he has acquired. I am saying that he doesn't have the capacity to represent us there. Because for you to even secure a visa for somebody for a job, you should have known that there are jobs available. Now you send the person there and suddenly you realize that there are no jobs available. And I also disagree with people who say that no, they send people for political appointment and that these people are not necessarily diplomats, and that we should have been sending career diplomats. There is every sense in making that statement. But there is also nothing wrong sending people who necessarily are not career diplomats, because some have been sent and they did creditably well. He made mention of Honorable Kwesi Ahoy. We never heard this. Who could have doubted Ambassador Kwesi Ahoy's position in NDC, and as a politician in Ghana who has been in politics for several decades? Who could have doubted that? Yet still, he treated every single Ghanaian in South Africa with respect, with diligence and honor, and that is why we never had a single complaint. Not only Ambassador Kwesi Ahoy, we had a lot of ambassadors. Dr. Twenedu was also sent there. We never had a single complaint from any of these people. Now, I expect our Ghanaians living in South Africa to agitate and demand the removal of this man. Because if I were in South Africa, I really don't think that that man is fit to be our ambassador. Yesterday, I heard this, what the Minister for Agriculture said, that 3 years ago, he was buying a ball of kinky at 3 Ghana cedis, and today a ball of kinky is sold at 1 Ghana cedis, and he's attributing it to the planting for food and jobs. And I asked myself whether indeed we do not need clinical psychologists to be appointed in some of our ministries. And I think that with some of these statements, I think it is unacceptable. It is a statement that ought not be condoned. And if the president refuses to get this person out, then it should be very clear to everybody the kind of person we have elected as our president. And in fact, we have elected a mess. We have elected a mess who cares a hoot about how Ghanaians feel. We have elected a mess who doesn't care the divisiveness. And I think that what we have had with those terrorist groups financed, aided and supported by the Flagstaff House that succeeded in dividing Ghanaians the more, I think that we have had enough. We least expected the division to cross the boundaries of this state. And I can tell you, this can create problems in Ghanaian communities in South Africa. Now he said that I have started. It wasn't an intent. He said, look, I have started meeting them. So what he's simply telling us is that I have started executing what I was asked to do. So if the president doesn't fire this man, clearly it confirms the position that he's certainly not in charge of this country. Or he's in charge of this country, but he has informed all his high commissioners and ambassadors, treat NPP people in your sending or receiving states, or sending state, your receiving state, your host state, treat NPP people different from the way you treat other NDC other political parties members, whether CPP or NDC, PNC or other political parties, or people who necessarily do not engage in direct partisan politics or engage in supporting any particular political party openly. That is precisely what the president would have asked them to do. So there are two things. Either he's not in charge, or he's in charge but ask them to do the kinds of things they are doing. If not, I can't fathom with any assertion why this man should still be in office 24 hours even after making that statement. You remember when Victoria Hammer made a statement, and the difference between the NDC and the MPP is that when we make statements, we own up. He is the first person who own up, and the reason why he own up is that he can't deny it. You remember the statement Cabo made and denied that he never made that statement. Victoria Hammer made a statement, or allegedly made a statement. And on that basis, you had all the so-called moral society who demanded that Victoria Hammer be fired. And the NDC, slavishly, we responded to those demands and have the lady fired. I think that it is also a big lesson to us. And I said here on one of our programs that the difference between the NDC and the MPP is that when a journalist picks a phone and calls an NDC man and says that the knives are out for you, you know what the NDC man does? He will just start attacking. But when a journalist picks a phone and calls an MPP man and says the knives are out for you, you know the first question he will ask? Whose knives? Are they NDC knives or NPP knives? And I think that we need to learn something out of it. That this attempt of trying, which we did in 2016, and which I think that we may want to do, trying to look for that invisible neutral votes, doesn't help anybody. I am not saying the list that we should condone some of the things that the MPP is doing, but at least, even if we want to take any action in future, let's ponder over the action and take the most appropriate action that is good, not just for NDC, but for the people of this country.
Right.
Because we have taken certain actions in the past, the consequences of which we are today. And I'm saying that this man should be fired. He is not prepared to resign. The president is unwilling to have him resign. And in fact, even if the president subsequently fired this man, it would have been an afterthought. And the beauty for the enhancements of democratic governance would have been vanished completely.
Right.
It didn't need anybody to push the president to get him fired.
Right.
I don't think that he's fit to represent Ghana anywhere. As a matter of fact, by his conduct and his statement, he's not fit to be an employee of our High Commission or anywhere in the world, let alone being the head of our mission in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, for your submission on this matter. You're still here with us on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. It's 5 minutes after 10. If you just join us, you are welcome to the show. We've had the views of Alhaji A.B.A. Husseini and that of Comrade Murtala Ibrahim. I come to Professor Nino Douna for his thoughts on the first subject matter we are discussing today. Good morning, Prof.
Thank you very much. I think I had opportunity to speak on this matter or express my views on this matter on Thursday or yesterday. I had it during the morning show. And the acceptability or unacceptability of the statement made by Mr. A.C. Boateng had been well flogged. The consequent action that everybody is calling for, I made a point that it rests or resides with the president. It is his prerogative. He has to exercise judgment and whether this gentleman needs to hang on to this position. But you see, I would like to get into other angles of the whole issue, and perhaps the young people out there who have a greater stake in the future, we use this medium to talk to them. The High Commissioner was, or I don't know, is the chairman of the Council of Elders of the President, of the MPP, isn't it? He is, or he was. At least I can relate it to when the Afoko and Kwabena Japon's issue. I know either he's a member or the chairman. I stand to be corrected. They say you cannot look at anybody's face and say he's 30 or 20, etc. But looking at him, I believe he must be fairly advanced in age. And I wasn't there. I don't know his date of birth, but if I put it beyond 60, I don't think I'm far from right. And I have a personal character and the crusaders I have embarked on. That you see, we have a saying in our local language that the way we normally come into this, the order in which we come into this world is not the same order we live. But 9 out of 10 older people leave before the younger generation also follow. Although these days we see behind vehicles, what a shock, gone so soon, we can't believe this. Instead of transition or obituary that we used to know. Because young guys are going, and it's quite worrying anyway. In some cultures, I had opportunity of attending a funeral in Tamale years back. And I got to know ABA and Comrade that the mother and the father of the deceased did not even, they had to leave Tamale because it said it's a taboo for you to stay and then bury your child. I stand to be corrected, or the proper implication put to the knowledge of listeners. You see, somebody of that age, I don't think all our lamentations will ever reform him. Either he's espousing a government or a party's position in the way jobs and positions will be allocated or assigned, or he might be expressing his personal views. But as I will put it again, for his age, you cannot say that he didn't know what he said. And he didn't say this at any gathering in South Africa, but it was in Kumasi. So a high commissioner had come home, whether he came for consultation, he came for a social event or family event or whatever. He met the students' association of the party, and these were the issues that came up. And obviously, even if he didn't know or he did not think that this matter will come out, or the media was not represented, obviously it was in the gathering. And these are things, if even you have it deep down in yourself, you say it ear to ear or mouth to ear. You know, to the young guys out there and the younger generation, they should listen to us. There are people, look, I have a class. When I ask them, where did you go to school? Not necessarily where you hail from. They will tell you some have never even gone past Kaswa. You understand? Mm-hmm. And they've been to school in Accra. And they are not Accra people, though. They are not Accra people. But if you find yourself born here or born in a particular place and you went to school and came to Legon or went to elsewhere, chances are that you will not know this country. And many people don't know this country. And so to the young guys out there, please, if you know this country, you just have to, you be humble. We are a multicultural country. We are resourceful, potentially endowed. But if you travel around this country, and I always say, Accra is not Ghana, but if it's a microcosm, just look at the conditions under which people live in Accra. You go to New Plant Station, people don't have a place to sleep. Fortunately, people are operating commercial toilets, with due respect, commercial bathrooms, and they just have their bags, they stack it to a shop, and they go around eking out a living. Where what they eat is not a problem. You go to a chop bar, you eat, you wash your hands. You want to go to toilet, you just go and pay 1 cedi or 50 pesos. You bath, you just get your sponge and towel, you stick it somewhere, and that's the way people are living. There are areas in Accra here, they talk about the rest of the country. Drinking water, we don't even have. Drinking water. And if you move beyond the urban centers, maybe I will call it regional capitals, Tamale, Bolga, Wa, Sunyani, etc. You may think that is all that you have seen. But when you go into what we may call hinterland, young guys out there, young ladies, young guys who have greater stake in the future, let's not listen to these divisive, negative, ill-thought sermons. The High Commissioner is in South Africa. The mission, I believe, is in Pretoria. But at least he should reflect and inspire young people in Ghana about the state level of development and organization. Of course, there are shanties in South Africa, but the level of organization. Since yesterday, when you Nima police station, just they're coming from the top, close to the ring road, a big pipe burst. To now, this morning, water is spilling. Flood. Since yesterday, Ghana Water Company. What does that tell you? We cannot even run our country. We cannot run our institutions. See, I believe if you ask anybody right now, since yesterday, Ghana Water Company. And we've talked about things that we cannot even do for ourselves. We have free SHS. Are we producing pencil in this country? Are we producing eraser? Are we producing handkerchiefs? Are we producing socks? What are we producing? Now, all these children who are going to school, all the things that they use, we say we are reviving our industry. We cannot produce anything. From here, walk to Okanshi, you can get a pencil to buy at 35 pesos. We challenge our economists and all those who are making lots of noise. That can we support anybody, an industrialist, to set up a factory here and produce a pencil that we can go and sell at 35 pesos? We cannot even run our state. Now, you realize that it is like, Comrade Mutala, you made a point towards the end of your submission that perhaps NDC needs to draw lessons from what is happening. I appreciate that. But then the angle at which I want to tackle this discussion is that since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, and obviously we've had the NDC MPP cycle, it is in a local balance, do me, I do you, the equalization that we say. So what is wrong? Maybe this provides opportunity, members of parliament, if there could be a common ground that NDC and MPP, those who have dominated the politics of the Fourth Republic, what is wrong? And we spoke on this very studio throughout the reign of President Kufuor. And the mantra at that time was, oh, if I steal 1 cedi, why do you complain? NDC stole 1 cedi, 50 pesos. And it seems that is what it. And I was so excited that about some few days ago, the former president, President Mahama, to tweet and prompt the moral society that with all that is happening, he was mostly surprised that none of them, and then we had the flood of people condemning, and even then, their voices were dumb. So, do we need to put the Fourth Republic in context? Do we have a constitution that is working? The framers of the constitution, the spirit behind this Fourth Republican constitution, the directive principles of state policy, the constitution, the very first article, chapter, that the sovereignty resides or belongs to the people of Ghana. So when you have a high commissioner who can get so low to talk about some are more citizens than others, I believe that's the lowest level that we can sink. And indeed, I am completely confounded. And then, how many people voted in the 2016 elections? It's not up to 30 million. If we even take it to 12 million, given the percentage of 53 and 44, it will be about 6.5 to 5.5. And we say we are 25 million. I believe we are hitting 30 if we even know the precise figures. And as you rightly pointed out, so those of us who are not in NDC and MPP, and the whole range of majority of Ghanaians who did not vote, if what we have been seeing over the past 6 elections, almost 50-50, 4-point-something million, 4.5 million, depending on where you have the tilt. But you are at the forefront of organization of the party. Can NDC and MPP say that you have 4.4 million registered members? At least since 93, 92, at each election, each party gets almost over 4 million. But are all these 4 million people your registered voters? And so this do me, I do you, or equalization, is it a face saving or a cheap alibi to run away from the challenges that confront us? Look, talk to the ordinary people on the streets. You wake up in the morning and you see young, able men and women, especially men, with energy. Some, the only thing that gives them reprieve in life for the day is to drink. Many of them are at our road intersections selling cassettes, discs, insecticide sprays, etc. And you look at what the guy is holding, and you read this cannot even be up to 20 cedis. But we thank God that at least they think they must do some hard work, not to take to any roguery to make a living. So given all these challenges, is that where we have to sink so low? Comrade Sean, I think much had been said on this matter since the news broke out. And I believe that anybody who gets into government, and especially the political establishment, will not take the ordinary man on the street to be somebody who doesn't know what he's about. And from what we have seen over the past couple of elections, on election day, people will tell you that really power or sovereignty belongs or resides with the people. And anybody who is in his 60s, we don't know how many years God has given to us, But if you are in that age bracket, the senior citizens, if we don't have anything legacy to leave at all, the best we can do is to shut up. Thank you.
Prof, never heard you like this before.
Obviously. You have to exude good heart, decency, you see, because you have seen the greater part of your life, and you have to leave the young people with greater hope, notwithstanding the challenges that confront them. The least you can do is that, and you don't have to really pollute their minds. And I look at my own child or my children in ours, and you want to tell them that somebody is a better citizen. For goodness sake, the Constitution even doesn't allow that. And nobody wills monopoly over patriotism. The destiny of this country, we all have equal stake. And it is important that those of us in that elderly bracket, once again, if you say you've never heard me, we must shut up if we don't have anything good to tell the people.
Thank you very much, Professor Nino Douna, for your submission on the show. You're still with us. It's 20 minutes after 10. Welcome if you just join us. Mr. Pratt, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the world has lost one. Professor Alote has gone home. And Professor Alote is not just the pride of Ghana. Indeed, he's the pride of all mathematicians all over the world. A principle in mathematics has actually been named after him, and that principle is known as the Alote principle. Only last week, perhaps one of the most distinguished journalists, Ghanaian journalists of all time, Mr. Kwame Jewuchem, also passed away. Mr. Jewuchem was editor of the Ghanaian Times, and he actually also became president of the Ghana Journalists Association. I think it's only appropriate that we send our condolences to the families of these two very great sons of Ghana. Now, having said that, I must stress a point, which is simply that we have a huge problem, and that problem is neither Ayusi Boateng nor what he said. The problem we are discussing is a problem which is far, far bigger than Ayusi Boateng and what he said, and I'll explain that. Now, I'd like to first of all pose a question. Last year, when we were voting on December 7th, if the voters knew that the new patriotic party, if it was elected, would cater for only the interests of members of the new patriotic party, how would the voting have gone? I mean, I have no doubt at all that if it had been made plain on December 7th, 2016, that TESCOM members of the new patriotic party and so on, will be placed over and above all other citizens, the new patriotic party could not have won that election. And indeed, this statement is buttressed by the analysis which was done by Professor Nino Douna in the studio. If you take those who are qualified to vote, and you take voter turnout and the percentage that President Akufo-Addo got, he doesn't even have 1/3 of the population of Ghana behind him. And the people who voted for him don't account for even 1/3 of the population of Ghana. It can be assumed also that even the 54% or thereabout who voted for him are not all members of the new patriotic party. And it is to this extent that the statement made by Ayusi Boateng are exceedingly reckless and condemnable. However, what Mr. Isibuatin said is not different from many other things which have been said by all kinds of politicians across the board. And I think we have to be honest about it. When the thugs, the vigilante groups, the terrorist groups of the NPP go out there and say that they were promised jobs in national security and that they have not been given jobs and therefore they are entitled to seize NADMO offices, they are entitled to seize national health insurance offices and so on, the sentiments they express are not substantially different from what Mr. Isibuatin has said. When people in government, when leaders of the political party meet the vigilante groups and tell them that, oh, we understand your concerns and that you should exercise patience and that in good time, the promises made to you will be made good and so on, the sentiments they express are not substantially different from what Isibuatin said. Indeed, when you hear NDC leaders and foot soldiers say that they were neglected, and that is why they sabotage President Mahama, the sentiments they express are not substantially different from what Mr. Isibuatin said, and so on. Indeed, when you hear some of our friends on radio complaining bitterly that they didn't chop well under Mahama, you understand? They are no different from a Isibuatin. And I think that we should cut out the hypocrisy and deal with the real issues. Now, you see, it was only yesterday, 2 days ago, that my attention was drawn to a member of parliament, sitting on television and actually boldly claiming that he's the father of his constituency. How is that different from what Isibuatin has said? And on many occasions, I've heard many people say that the president is the father of the nation. How is that different from what Isibuatin said? So, look, we should examine all of this critically and would realize that we have been on this sloppy road for a very, very long time. Isibuatin's is dramatic, is vulgar, and so on. So it brings the issues in sharp relief. But all of us, in various ways, are undermining the national constitution. All of us, in various ways, believe the phenomena which was described by A.B.A. Husseini from the very beginning of his submission, that once you are elected, you become a god. And that once you are elected, you become the unquestioned custodian and dispenser of state resources. That once your party is elected, the country belongs to you, and so on. That is the phenomena we should be questioning. You understand? Now, take the member of parliament, for example, who sees himself as father of the constituency. Who made him father? He totally misunderstands his role. You have been elected by a people to work for them. The relationship between you and the electorate in your constituency is not one of father and son or father and daughter. It is one of employer and employee, if you are to put it that way. They have elected you to work for them. And their taxes will pay your salary, pay your allowances, buy you a car, and pay your rent. How do you become their father all of a sudden? How does the president all of a sudden become father of the nation? The president is not my father. He will never be my father. I will never be anybody's father. He's president. He's been elected to do a job for 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, if he doesn't do the job well, we will sack him. We don't sack fathers. At the end of the 4 years, if the president does not meet our expectation, we will sack him. Even the Constitution allows us not to wait for 4 years. If in the first month he commits an impeachable offense, the people of Ghana through their institutions have a right to sack him first month. How is he a father? And then all of us, father of the nation, father of the constituency, father of the hamlet, father of the this and that. What is wrong with us? So we do not understand. We do not appreciate this democratic dispensation in which we are and the imperatives it imposes on us. And A.C. Boateng is not an exception. A.C. Boateng actually mirrors our own inadequate understanding of our processes, our own inadequate understanding of our institutions, our own inadequate understanding of our functions and role in society. Look, I think that the call for the dismissal of His Excellency A.C. Boateng has some merit. It has some merit because it will help us to establish standards. Because it will teach people that there are barriers you don't cross, and that if you cross those barriers, you could face sanctions and so on. So to that extent, I'm comfortable with the calls for the dismissal of Mr. A.C. Boateng. However, if Mr. A.C. Boateng is dismissed today, how does that cure the problem represented by him and what he says? That's a fundamental question. What standards do we apply when we are appointing people to sensitive positions? What is the criteria? That is the critical question. And I have been scandalized by some of the things that have happened at the appointments of Committee of Parliament over the years. Completely scandalized. I've seen people appointed as ministers and deputy ministers. They appear before Appointments Committee and they are asked to sing the Methodist hymn, number so and so. The person is going to become your minister. And the test is whether or not the person can sing the Methodist hymn.
Because maybe he's a Methodist.
Me, I've heard some explanations. One time I tried to find out what was happening. I was told that, the person, if you ask difficult questions, you embarrass you and embarrass the president and so on. So why not? Just sing some song and go away. So if this is our attitude, why then do we complain when in the end they behave and talk like A.C. Boateng? You understand? And over the last 3 weeks, I've been to some public functions. And Sammy, I've been most embarrassed. Important public functions. There was one that I attended, and the minister delivered the keynote address. Oh, the lie, massa. The is passed somewhere, the was upside down, grammar, you will run away. And the minister is reading a prepared speech. It was obvious that the minister didn't understand what he or she was reading. Gibberish, complete gibberish. And I'm sitting there and I'm so embarrassed as a Ghanaian. You understand? So I asked myself, who made this person a minister? What standard were we trying to uphold? And did Parliament vet and approve this minister? My goodness. In the end, you know what happened? The minister's hands were shaking like the Ghana flag in a storm. Shaking so badly like the Ghana flag in a storm that he had to, or she, or whatever, had to be studied.
When was this?
You understand?
This year.
I mean, Why do we do this to ourselves? This is the country which produced Professor Alote. This is the country which produced Professor Alote. This is the country which produced Dr. Konote Aholu. You understand? I mean, this country has produced so many greats, and they are still around. And yet, when it comes to appointments, these are the people who get the appointments. That is the problem. The problem is one of standards. How to maintain the standards, how to enforce the standard. The problem is one of processes for appointing people. It is not a Yisibuating. It is not what a Yisibuating says. What is the criteria? How did a Yisibuating become Ghana's High Commissioner to the Republic of South Africa? You see, South Africa is so very important in the world for a number of reasons. First, it is an economic giant. If you're talking about the BRICS countries and so on, South Africa, India, Russia, and so on, Iran, and so on, Brazil, they constitute a certain economic power. So South Africa is important for economic reasons. South Africa is also important for its history. That is where the world fought over many years, decades, to defeat apartheid. You understand? That is how the world fought over decades to defeat apartheid. It has a certain history, a history of black power and black pride, a history of black nationalism, a history of liberation and so on. You understand? So if you are appointing somebody to South Africa, what is the quality you look for? And you see, South Africa is also a country whose relationship with Ghana is dictated by Ghana's own vanguard role in the national liberation struggle in Africa under Kwame Nkrumah. You understand? And there are many, many distinguished Ghanaians who played distinguished roles in the liberation of South Africa from the clutches of apartheid. One of them is Captain Kojo Chikata, who fought in Angola alongside the Cuban internationalist forces, who surrounded the apartheid army, leading to the defeat of apartheid and independence for the consolidation of independence for Namibia, Angola, and so on. So I'm wondering how somebody like Captain Chikata will be feeling this morning or has been feeling throughout the week, listening to our High Commissioner in South Africa talk like an apartheid officer. You understand? This is where the problem is. What are the standards we want to maintain and so on? And you see, the government itself ought to be exceedingly careful with the kinds of statements it has made, it is making, and it is likely to make. You know why I say that? There is no way the public sector in Ghana can employ all unemployed MPP youth and activists. It is not possible. The Ghanaian public sector today, over the next 4 years, cannot employ all the unemployed, disadvantaged, and so on, activists of the New Patriotic Party. So if party leaders go around making such statements and claims and promising the promises they've been making in opposition and are still making, they would not be able to fulfill these promises. And it will create an avalanche of discontent within the New Patriotic Party, and it will haunt them until they are booted out of office if they continue like this sooner than later. So they should watch it. So far, how have they been able to satisfy the few that they have managed to satisfy? By sacking people and employing them and creating even more discontent amongst many people. Some of the people they sacked at the DVLA, They were MPP sympathizers. Some of the people who have been sacked at the ports and so on, they were MPP sympathizers and so on. Now, even that whole practice of sacking people and replacing them with MPP people and so on is just the same attitude of Boateng is what informs those actions. So how can you condemn Boateng and what he says without condemning what has happened at the DVLA? Without condemning what is happening in all the other state institutions where workers are being sacked, legitimate legal workers are being sacked and being replaced by MPP activists. And you see, I get very scared because this whole phenomenon is getting out of hands. And it's getting out of hands because now I hear some of these activists say that we have a right to be employed in national security. National security. When your national security becomes a dumping ground for disgruntled, tag-infested party activists, then you are in serious trouble. Look, one of the biggest dangers I noticed with this entry into the national security apparatus and so on happened under President Kufuor. We were holding a non-aligned conference in Accra. The bodyguards of the dignitaries who are attending the non-aligned conference use an SPD vehicle to commit robbery at West Legon. So how were they recruited? Only recently, I was talking to a very senior police officer about the spate of policemen committing crime, especially armed robbery and so on. And the police officer told me that now our standards and criteria for recruitment have been thrown to the dogs. Every political party that comes to power wants to make sure that its activists are recruited into the police service, are recruited into the Ghana Armed Forces, and in doing so, we are not sticking to standards and criteria. So all kinds of people have become soldiers. All kinds of thugs have become policemen, and so on. Even sometimes, the very physical attributes that the security services look for are not there. You know that they said, for example, that because of the boots they wear and some of the things they do and so on, flat-footed persons are not admitted into these services. Okay. Now they are being admitted into the services. Now nobody cares about your physical attributes anymore. All you have to do is to flash a parsley membership card or get a big man to put in a telephone call. We are destroying our security services with this attitude. And now it appears that we are also destroying our civil and public services with this clearly nonsensical attitude. It doesn't make sense, and yet we are doing it. You see, I am getting increasingly worried. If you take all of our newspapers, now I looked at the newspapers today. So all this shouting about corruption and so on. And you know, when most of us talk about corruption and so on, what are we talking about? We are talking about the $100,000 that gets missing here, the $200,000 that gets missing there and so on. That is our concentration. We forget that even the process of recruitment into the public service and the civil service is riddled with corruption, and that it is no longer merit-based. You understand? What is more corrupt than going to DVLA and sacking hundreds of workers so that you can create room for MPP activists? So in our discussion of corruption, we are just looking at monetary theft of money. Theft of money. That has become our standard. That is what we look at. And we ignore all the other immoral acts, all the other political actions that lower our standards, that destroy our standards, that make nonsense of the constitutional provisions and so on. And you see, the Constitution, we either keep it all and respect it all and implement it all, or we throw it away. Yes, most of the time here, this is a constitutional violation. That is a constitutional violation. There are key constitutional violations that we overlook, that we even all violate and so on. Why? This constitution, the 1992 constitution, guarantees the freedom of worship. Every citizen is entitled to believe in God or not to believe in God. Every citizen can choose to become a Muslim or a Baha'i or a Tigari man, or if you like, a citizen can choose not to go to the Methodist church but to become an adherent of the Mozambique Disco Cristo Church. That is what our constitution says. But yet, if you go to every public function, you are compelled to say a prayer. Is that not a violation of the constitution? How dare you go to a public function and protest that they are saying a prayer? They will immediately paint you as the devil incarnate, and they will treat you with scorn, and they will embarrass you and push you into a corner. And yet the very constitution guarantees the right to believe whatever you want to believe. Is that not an affront to the constitution? Now in most of our public service institutions, civil service, public service and so on, the first 30 minutes in the morning is morning devotion. Whether you like it or not, your boss says morning devotion, and we have morning devotion. And then afternoon devotion. And before you go home in the evening devotion. So we are spending sometimes close to 2 hours of the working hours praying, forcing people to pray. How can we make progress? How is this different from Isi Boateng and what he says? So let us adopt a comprehensive attitude. Let us develop an attitude of tolerance of everybody. Let us inculcate in our people the sense that Ghana belongs to all people, irrespective of their party political affiliation. Let us inculcate into the youth and sometimes the older generation that the resources of Ghana are not for the NPP or the NDC. They are for the people of Ghana in their collective and so on. That is the way to move forward. You know what surprises me? The new patriotic party, at least in our recent history, has been in power for 8 solid years continuous. This is a party which was in power from 2001 to 2009. It cannot be making these mistakes. After being in power for 8 years, how can they be making these mistakes? You understand? Today, I look back at the Kufuor administration, and I must say in all honesty, I think things are deteriorating. I think things are deteriorating. Because we didn't see a lot of these things in the Kufuor era. You understand? So how come that after 8 years in power, things appear to be deteriorating? How come? Standards appear to be falling. How come? These are the fundamental questions we should be addressing. Yes, those who want to see Boateng dismissed and so on have a point. But dismissing Isi Boateng does not resolve the fundamental problems that his conduct and utterances bring forth.
But leaving him will make the matters even worse. So the minimum level is for him to go.
I'm sure you heard me speak.
Yes.
The introduction is totally unnecessary.
All right, let's go on to read a few text messages that have come through. We have 12 minutes before it will be 11 here on Alhaji and Alhaji. This one from Starring Wendell says, a very blissful morning to Radio Gold panelists on Alhaji and Alhaji. If we say, it's not wise you have your mortal enemy in full glare than to have him hidden somewhere, not knowing what mischief he plans in the dark recesses of his mind. Mr. George Isi Boateng's careless idol confirms the true representation of NPP and the chief appointer's policy. Starring sender through Ibrahim Namlana says, Ishan, Mr. Isi Boateng did not speak like a Ghanaian. Are NPP supporters the only people in Ghana? He does not sound to be a matured politician. The president should sack him, or better, he should resign honorably. He is the type who can easily cause chaos into the country. And that's your submission. Musa Abattoir in Kumasi says, the cooked apology by Isi Boateng cannot be accepted hook, line, and sinker because a diplomat cannot behave like a party full soldier. He deserves to be appointed at the NPP headquarters in charge of full soldiers, not South Africa High Commission. Civil societies and Professor Jampo have called President Akufo-Addo to fire him or resign. We need competent men to represent us internationally. Nathan Corte says, preach on, Alhaji, more proverbs. Mr. AC must apologize, and he apologized under duress. He had no remorse in him. Komla Genya says, I'll be very surprised if anyone is surprised about what Isi Boateng has said. That has always been the mindset of the leadership of the NPP. They think Ghana belongs to them. And if you are not part of them, you are less Ghanaian. What an uncivilized way of thinking. McDowell sends the message. What Mr. Isi said has been the mindset of NPP and their cohorts. What comes from a person's mouth is what is in his heart. Have you forgotten what the senior minister said? They thought Ghana is for them and any other person is a second-class citizen. Where is the civil society groups that your contribution you sent through this morning? From Prekese Kwame Aristocrat, he says, critically, according to Isi Boateng, what he said represents the same thinking of his colleague ambassadors. This means it was a policy the presidency asked them to do during the orientation at the Flagstaff House, and that's why the presidency arranged his apology for him, even though the man swore not to apologize. The South African government, as a matter of urgency, should listen to the comment of the diplomat Isi Boateng and expel him accordingly. They are a country that suffered and fought against discrimination. They should demonstrate their commitment to this xenophobic menace. That's from Prekese Kwame Aristocrat from Kaswa Old Barrier. AU Farouk says, good morning to you, Kwame, and to your able panelists. In fact, the apology by His Excellency George Isi Boateng is useless and long overdue. The reputation of Ghana has been shamelessly thrown away. The president is too clueless and dormant. Jesse Mensah says, good morning, Sammy. I hope you're doing well today. I'm doing fine, sir. Okay. Oh, Jesse, good morning. Today happens to be your 60th birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir. This one from Stephen Kobnati says, good morning, Sammy. Yes, Ambassador Isi Boateng has apologized. Yes, we heard him. But some of us don't believe that is enough for him to remain at post. He made known what he harbors within him. And that won't vanish just like that. As we speak, he said he met with his staff and made his agenda known. Has that been deleted? That agenda is alive and well. It is only by removing him that that agenda can be said to have been dismissed. The president must act. But would that be a surprise? That's from Stephen Kwabna Atu sending that through. This one says, I get shocked anytime Ghanaians are shocked at what is happening today. We saw it coming. Another from Ed Fiamalog Auku. Okay, Ed, I think you just sent a wave on Facebook. I'm grateful for that message. Let me go and read a few tweets as well that have come through. I see some messages that have come personally through WhatsApp as well. Let me read some of these ones that have come through. This one from Yasser Arafat says, at Samalishan Summit today, superior and more Ghanaian ministers can't speak good English. They indeed have the men. I need Professor's contact number. All right, I'll speak to him. If he says I should give you, I will. This one from Habib from Insamom says, the bigotry statement from Ambassador George Isi Boateng is the mindset of all NPP members, including President Nana Addo Dankwa, who himself is a divisive person. Yusuf Haruna tweets and says, hi, Sami. It is not out of the blue that Isi Boateng made those comments. It is an orchestrated agenda of NPP in government. AU Farouk, I believe I read your Facebook message. Hadi says, how can we progress as a nation with people like Isi Boateng holding sensitive position? I cry for Mother Ghana. Frankie P says, hi, Sammy. Yo, Ghanaians are watching and listening to the NPP, and the day of reckoning shall come soon. I rest my case. Cecil Adokli tweets and says, Really enjoying the show. Please get an affiliate here in Hope because so many people are dying to listen to the show. Patrick Aaron says George must be sacked immediately because his comment was inhumane. Richmond K. Galley says the comment by Mr. Isi Boateng is most unfortunate and comes across as a first century water of reasoning. God save Ghana. Delanyo Agbe says, in fact, Mr. Shen, the title is His Excellency, must be dropped. Mr. Isi Boateng doesn't deserve it. And, okay, I believe that should be it, okay, for the WhatsApp messages that came through. This one from Ambassador Sampiyale. He says, how can this High Commissioner faithfully be trusted for the implementation of ROPA? I played host to many and all Ghanaians, including former presidents and key members of the NPP and students. I even paid school fees and medical bills in India. Prof. And I think, Prof, that in reaction to your statement, your final words that you gave. Let me read this one as well. This one from Baba Musa says, Sammy, good morning. It's sad that the recalcitrant and bigot George Isi Boateng looked at the 27 million Ghanaians in our faces and shamefully told us that he meant what he said. It's not for nothing that most public officials, if not all, in Ghana are obliged and enjoined to take oaths before their official assumption of office duties. That includes ambassadors and high commissioners, amongst others. It's because the framers of our laws foresaw the possibility of some public officials behaving in a shameful and irresponsible manner, like that bigot, Mr. Isi Boateng. That's why our laws require certain public officials to take oaths to do justice to all manner of persons, regardless of their ethnicity, social status, religious affiliations, etc. Kudos to our indefatigable MP, the Honorable A.B.A. Fuseni, for his fantastic presentation on the issues, as well as his colleagues. If a Kufuor decides to keep him, it's not possible to petition, charge for his removal. That's your concern as well here on the show. Let me read this one. It's a very important one. The Alliance for Responsible Citizens, AFRC, wishes to inform Ghanaians that the Yentua demo is confirmed for Tuesday, 14th November 2017. The demo will start from Obra Sport, that's a circle, at 8 a.m. to the following location: the Flagstaff House, Parliament, the Press Centre, which were agreed with the Greater Accra Police Command following a court ruling against the police who had earlier tried to frustrate the demonstration. There will be separate petitions presented at the 3 stops on the demonstration route. The first stop would be the Flagstaff House, and at the Flagstaff House, petitions will be presented to President, the NCA, and the Minister of Communications on the illegal and unconstitutional NCA fees. The second stop will be Parliament, and at Parliament House, the Speaker will receive a petition on the usurpation of its power by the Honorable Esla Owusu and Joe Anoche. The third stop will be the International Press Centre. The NMC, GEBA, and GJ will receive petitions on the Akufo-Addo government's attempt to curtail press freedoms, media plurality, and constrict the frontiers of free expression. The demonstration will end with an address by the media, both local and international, and all are invited to join to safeguard press freedom in Ghana. Those are a few of the messages that came through this morning. Quite a lengthy message there. We move on to our next topic for discussion, which has to do with the response by the office of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, to the allegation of constructing the Cocoa Research Institute guest house, and the allegation that that was meant for his personal use. I'll start with you, comrade, and I think we have an hour. So if we have an hour, if we decide to speak 20 minutes each, I believe we can be able to do justice before our time runs out. So, comrade, 20 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Let me say that I was privileged to have represented the Minister of Trade on the board of Cocoa Board. Minister of Trade has a representative, Minister of Finance has a representative, and I was privileged that my minister asked me to represent the ministry on Cocoa Board, so I have first-hand understanding of some of the decisions that were taken with regards to some of the things the MPP is now bringing up. But Sean, before I go into that, it is important for us to catalogue some of the falsehood that have been peddled by this government ever since they took the reins of governance of this country after the 2016 elections. I guess you remember the missing 200 vehicles. You remember?
Yeah.
It is instructive to note that the MPP, the Flagstaff House, they are well aware who took those 200 vehicles. They are very aware. You remember that in handing over the NDC, the SYL NDC government handed over everything to them. And the journalist who, of course, is not a friend of the NDC, Manasseh Azure, corroborated the position of the NDC that he went to the Flagstaff House and, in fact, saw those vehicles. He knew that they were all there. Now, the NDC came out and said that, the MPP came out and said that those vehicles were taken by the NDC, assuming that proper handing over was not done. The NDC would have been accused by well-meaning Ghanaians of actually taking those vehicles. The understanding I have is that they took the vehicles on the very day they had the swearing in. Some people, I'm told, from the vice president's residence went to the Flagstaff House because there were people they needed to transport to the grounds. When they went, the gentleman handling the keys gave the keys to them to pick. That he would just take a key. Once he pressed the alarm, you go and take this. So subsequently, a lot of the MPP guys went in. So they know where those vehicles are. I think that it's important the people of this country, particularly the journalists, demand to know from the government the whereabouts. Yes, it's important they demand to know from the government the whereabouts of those 200 vehicles. Because if you see 200 vehicles were missing and accuse the NDC, and the NDC prove, beyond any doubt that everything was handed over to you with the handing of everything, we need to know the whereabouts of those vehicles. So I would challenge Radio Gold and other media houses, I know some wouldn't, to demand from this government to tell us the whereabouts of the 200 vehicles. You remember the Maslock story when they said that Maslock indeed, procured tricycles at the cost of about 17 million. When in actual fact they said 600 tricycles. The truth of the matter was the fact that 2,000 tricycles were actually procured. The person delivered 600. The 600 were not even, paid for when we lost power. Now this government needed to. We had Ibrahim Ajay, who sat on Metro TV and said that Maslock paid 17 million Ghana cedis for 600 tricycles, and Ochirdaku had it published in his paper. Of course, the paper owned by his uncle, the president, in the Statesman. I think that nobody is saying anything about it until Maslock came out and proved with evidence that these were the vehicles, tricycles that were procured. They were not even leased. We didn't even pay before we left office. You remember the story about NYEP. Recently, you have someone who is unfit to be the board chair of NYEP in the person of the MPP youth organizer. And I say he's unfit because if you look at the criteria, the qualification of someone being the head of NYEP, he has no such qualification to be there. And people raise questions about his appointment. He came out recently and said that NYEP bought bicycles, you remember, at the cost of some huge thousands of Ghana cedis. One actual fact, for the 8 years the NDC was in power, from Prof. Mills's administration to President Mahama administration, NYEP never bought a single bicycle. As a matter of fact, those bicycles were bought under the NPP. I served in NYEP between 2009 to 2008. NYEP never bought. And the current, remember recently the NYEP issued a statement. The former executive said, look, board chair, they never bought any bicycle. And this was another falsehood that they peddled. And you remember the story of the ghost names in which the president himself, embarrassingly, when he was ill-informed that they had expunged about thousands of ghost names from the payroll, and that saving the nation a lot of millions of Ghana cedis, only for the minister to come out and apologize to the people of this country. So the strategy of the NPP is that just throw out falsehood. At least some Ghanaians will believe. The good thing about this is that when big people begin to take every single thing you say with a pinch of salt, then you remember your government is collapsing. And I have no doubt in mind that the MPP is collapsing at a very fast rate. Now, today, if you look at the Cocoa Board, a lot of lies were told about Dr. Opuni, the board of Cocoa Board, and the management of Cocoa Board entirely. Unfortunately and sadly, some of this falsehood were peddled by certain greedy individuals in NDC. That is a fact. Certain greedy individuals in NDC peddled those falsehood. And some people within the NDC who benefited from even Cocoa Board, who were those peddling those falsehood. You may hate Opuni, you may hate the board. I have no qualms at all about it. You have reasons why you don't like him. But for us to peddle those falsehoods about the person, heighten the interest of the NPP, and they use those falsehoods against not just Opuni as a person, but the entire NDC. For which reason? They dissipated the confidence the people of Ghana, or some people of Ghana, had in the President Mohammed's administration and the NDC, for which reason we are where we are today. I believe that those people should be bound their heads in absolute shame. It's so embarrassing what they did. And I'm saying that those falsehoods they peddled, and those falsehoods have been the basis on which the MPP is telling these lies. And you know what? The lies are no longer limited to Dr. Opuni. They have extended the lies to no less a person than the former president, who had no control whatsoever as to how Cocoa Board discharged its duties and responsibilities. Now, some of the falsehood, you remember when they held the minority held the press conference, Ishon, and raised certain legitimate questions. The press conference was raised to ask questions about the dealings of Cocoa Board. And the issues they raised were, one, that the free fertilizer that the Opuni's administration and the NDC government did, what has happened to the free fertilizer? And as a matter of fact, the fertilizer that Cocoa Board is selling today, the farmers have actually paid for that fertilizer. Two, the free supply of hybrid and early maturing cocoa that was given to farmers by the Opuni's administration and seedlings. Three, the enhanced cocoa mass spraying which was done by the Opuni's administration. The construction of cocoa roads. All these were issues that the minority raised in their press conference. The minority also wondered why the president would appoint the Cocoa Marketing Board chair. Because if you look at this, the Cocoa Marketing Company, it is an agency under, if you like, under the Cocoa Board. It's subsidiary to the Cocoa Board. And the Cocoa Board, the CEO of Cocoa Board, chairs the meetings of the CMCs. So they take instructions from the Cocoa Board as to what they do. Is there like a ministry having the responsibility of policy formulation and implemented by an agency? Now, the practice has always been that you appoint the CEO, and the CEO will also appoint the head in consultation with the board. The President Nanado's administration and President Nanado has appointed the CEO of Cocoa Board and appointed the head of the CMC. So who will be answering to who? Because you answer to the appointing authority. The minority raised that issue. The minority also wondered why the MPP government and the current management is silent on the fact that we have yielded 966,400 metric tons, almost 1 million metric tons of cocoa this year. As a matter of fact, we could not have done that but for the interventions that were put up by the Opuni's administration, free fertilizer, free spraying, and a whole lot of things. Now, it has to take those interventions to be able to yield the kind of result that we have had. Remember the last 2-3 years, we didn't reach the target we have reached because we had severe harmattan, you remember? And the harmattan actually affected the production of Cocoa Board and the cocoa supply. We have had this because the harmattan was not so much, if you like, last year. And those interventions that Opuni's administration put in place, that was the reason why we had the 966.400. You remember, in recent history, the time we were able to get more than this was under Prof. Mills's administration in 2011, when we had the 1 million metric tons of cocoa. The minority wondered why the current management and government is silent on this. And the reason was simple. If they spoke about the fact that we have gotten 966,400 metric tons of cocoa, then it will be credit to the Opuni. They bastardized, they insulted, they ramshackled the management and the board. They said was doing absolutely nothing. It would have been embarrassing to those hypocrites in NDC who connived with MPP at that time because they had personal vendetta against certain individuals there. It would have been embarrassing, and that is why they didn't want. So the minority wondered why. The minority also wondered the justification in selling a fertilizer which was procured by the Opunese administration to be distributed to cocoa farmers free. And shown on those fertilizer, it is written boldly, not for sale. Yet this government is selling the fertilizer to these poor farmers at 80 Ghana cedis. And our checks have revealed that if you check, a lot of the fertilizers are lying in the sheds, which are even rotten because the farmers don't have the money to do what? To buy. And government also wondered why. The excuse was that they were using it to pay the debts, you remember, of Cocoa Board. And government said no. We indeed targeted 800,000 metric tons. Also the Minority Act, and which is a fact. We targeted 800,000 metric tons of cocoa. We went in for a syndicated loan of $1.8 billion. And remember, Sean, since 1992, Cocoa Board has been going for the syndicated loan every year. And Cocoa Board has never defaulted. And I say this with emphasis. Cocoa Board has never defaulted in paying this loan since 1992. Now, if Cocoa Board went in for $1.8 billion loan, for syndicated loan, and they indeed collateralized 750,000 metric tons, the target to produce was 800,000. So they collateralized that 750,000 metric tons, and the 750,000 was going to take care of the $1.8 billion loan. Fortunately, because of the good interventions of the Opunese Cocoa Board, the management and the board and the NDC government under President Mahama, we yielded 966,400 metric tons. Now, if we take the 750,000, which was collateralized to pay the 1.8 billion, you would have a balance of about 200. If you take the total figure, you have a balance of about let me just get the figure. Good. 200, I want to be very specific, 216,400 metric tons. Now, a ton of cocoa is sold at $1,900. Now, if you multiply the $1,900 by the 216,400 metric tons, you are going to get $411 million, 160,000. So you are going to get $160,000. Now you can't have any justification of selling this fertilizer, which the farmers have actually paid for already, selling it with the excuse that you are selling it to pay debts. As a matter of fact, it's complete thievery, it's complete robbery. You are robbing these poor farmers who are struggling to help build the economy of Ghana. And this was one of the issues the minority raised. So the majority should tell us, the management of Cocoa Board should tell us what they are using the $411,160,000 for. If you look at the city equivalence of that amount, that will give you over 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. Sean, over 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. That is how much it's going to give you. Now again, if you look at even the figure, that will be about 1.8500. That is 1,850,000,000 Ghana cedis. That is how much the $411,160,000 is going to give you. Now, government also came out with the road, that is the cocoa roads. And I remember we discussed this extensively. The 5-year cocoa road project. Now, if you look at the roads were constructed under the Ministry of Roads and by the Ministry of Roads through the agencies. Now, because cocoa farmers, and if you look at the board had representatives of cocoa farmers. Now, the cocoa farmers' concerns were that some of those roads, because it is done by an agency that is not directly working with we the farmers, some of the roads in the past have been constructed in areas that doesn't suit the interests of the farmers. Now, government decided that then, in awarding those contracts, Cocoa Road should be the lead. Of course, do it with the Ministry of Roads and its agencies. Now, Ministry of Roads then said, okay, Cocoa Board deal with the agencies, highways, urban roads, and others. These were the things that were done. Now, you know the argument that they have also made. They said that the Opunese and the Cocoa Board indeed over-awarded contracts. I mean, for me, this is elementary. President Kufuor indeed cut the saw for the Sufo line interchange at a time when he didn't have a budget for that particular project. If you take the Shashi up to Eburi, that road was the had begun by the MPP, the interchange, the gang road. They didn't have a single budget for it. Now today, take even a lot of roads that you can give examples to. Take the Achimota of Onko Road. Take the Sohum Road. These things were done by the previous administration without a dime. Now, Prof. Mills' administration came and they needed to look money for it. What you do is that if you have a budget to construct roads, and Cocoa Board targeted that we're going to spend $750,000 in constructing these roads, that is a 5-year plan. You don't necessarily need to have the money sitting down. What you do is that some of the roads, it will take them 3 years, 4 years to finish. So when they start, every year you raise a budget and then you do what? You pay. So that is the simple logic. These are people who claim they are the most intelligent people, yet a basic simple analysis they couldn't appreciate. Now, if you have a budget, a road construction that is more than what you have budgeted for, it doesn't mean that because you have budgeted for, let's say, 10 cities to do something, and then the road work is about 20 cities you have awarded beyond. You should have looked at the roads. How many years are they going to take to finish those roads? So if you have a road that will complete in 3 years, so every year you raise the budget, because if you look at it, they said $2 billion. And then $2 billion, and then we raise only, $4 billion, and we raise $2 billion. Now the $2 billion will take care of what they would have done within this year, okay? And the subsequent year, anytime they do that, you do it. And the reason for the construction of the roads was, one, not necessarily to provide livelihood for the people alone, which is very critical, but also most importantly, to help them cut the cocoa to the marketing centers, to help them that a lot of cocoa that is rotten and left. Recently, we were told that the post-harvest loss is almost 60% of the total, what do they call it, the farm produce that we have. Do we know the post-harvest loss with regards to this? Now, you realize that majority of the cocoa that we produce in Ghana is from Western region. Sean, Western region has one of the deplorable roads in this country. And so shamefully, the current CEO of Cocoa Board, who is from Western region, and a lot of these roads are in Western region, he has no shame in coming to lie about things that are done to alleviate the suffering. I want to find out from the current CEO, when he was the minister, the regional minister there, he should tell us how many roads he constructed. And didn't he know the plight of the cocoa farmers? And this was what this government has actually done. It is also important, Ishon, to look at the allegations that they have leveled. Part of the allegations are that they never met a dime. When they came, Cocoa Board didn't even have a dime. I want to ask them one simple question. And the journalist from Oman FM, whom they have employed, that he said they gave him a title, a manager of something. Let's find out. I don't know the guy's qualification. But Cocoa Board, before, when you are employed with a degree, remember, even if you have master, they employ you with a degree. When you are employed with a degree, for you to reach the status of a manager, you should have worked with Cocoa Board for 15 years. 15 years. That Fifu Boafo was the name. How long has he worked with Cocoa Board? That he has been promoted, he's been given the title, a manager. Go and check. Now, the list I think he may have will be degree, the list. So if he was employed with a degree, he needs to work with Cocoa Board for 15 years to be able to attain that status, to reach that level as a manager. This is a gentleman who was employed there. And you know how much it takes? A manager at Cocoa Board takes over 10,000 Ghana cedis. So this is how much that gentleman who was working at Oman FM is taking at Cocoa Board. One, he is not qualified to be a manager. Regardless, even if he has a PhD, he is not qualified to be a manager because he hasn't worked for Cocoa Board for 15 years. I am told he is using a Prado. Even directors at Cocoa Board don't use Prado. The CEO should tell us how that that gentleman has attained that and why he's taking that man. Now, if the MPP young guys are complaining they don't have jobs, they should find out what is being done to that gentleman who was a journalist at Oman FM. Now, two, they also said that when they came, they never found any money. Cocoa Board didn't leave a dime. How did they pay salaries of employees at Cocoa Board? How did they buy the new car for the current board chair? A new car. You know what Mr. Hackman did? When they bought him the new car, he made them change the interior because he didn't like it. Several thousands of Ghana cedis was spent in it. Let them come and deny it. You know why he did? When you get to Cocoa Board, the office that was used by Dr. Puni and the then board chair, you know what they did? They said that offices were not up to their standard, so they needed to refurbish those offices. And I am told that, you know, when you get to the fourth floor where we used to have the board meetings, you have female washroom, you had male washroom. The current board chair seized the key to the female washroom, and he was the only person using it until people raised issues and he gave the keys out. These are the people who said that they were interested in protecting the public space. The question I ask again is, when they came and made all kinds of noises about how much the chief executive at Cocoa Board was taking, I want to find out from them, have they reduced the salary of the current board chair? Have they received the salary of the current CEO? Because if you claim that how much was being paid to the Dr. Opuni and then the board chair was too much, the simple thing you do is to reduce it. Last point. Monies were spent to renovate the residence of the CEO of Cocoa Board. They made a whole lot of noise about it. You know one interesting thing? The current CEO lives in that residence with his wife and children, with his in-laws and grandchildren. Now the simple question I ask about him is that, don't behave like the people of Jimli. Honorable Aziz is not here. They don't eat the head of a rabbit, but they eat the entire body. So if they slaughter a rabbit, they take away the head. That is what is happening. That you condemn the previous administration. You said that they spent so much money in renovating this. Now, if you look at Cocoa Board, it will interest you to know that they spend that money, yet you reside in it with your wife, your in-laws, your grandchildren. Now, again, Dr. Puni is important. Dr. Puni
I would
never
have to pause you here.
As far as I'm concerned, Dr. Puni never signed a single check at Cocoa Board. Now, the question I ask is that if you come out and make an outrageous claim that 400 million could not be traced, how? Cocoa Board is not like it ran a private business.
Right.
Now, how did you know that you could not trace the whereabouts of 400 million, yet you claim that Dr. Puni took that money? Then you knew who took that money. Now, from which bank, from which accounts, is very important that this is
here for me, so other colleagues can also have their turn to speak for the same 20 minutes allocated to you. I'll come to you, Honorable Abi. Yes, you spoke for 20 minutes. Yes. Honorable Abi Husseini.
Mutala, I'm surprised that you are surprised. Because you see, how can the chief distributor of alcohol condemn drunkards?
Wow.
The MPP, you know that clearly. They signal left and turn right.
No, but I beg you.
So
I'm coming. I beg you. The reason why I wanted to talk just a second about the Cocoa, the guest house. I have used that guest house when I finished Legon, and I did a research with ISA. The point is that the guest house, President Mahama and any other person who went to Bali could use it. Now, if you go to Bali, President Mahama has his family house, even before his own house. You go to Bali with his security. He may have a room in his father's house. Now, if you have a room in your father's house, must you go with the security? The executive wing they're talking about, at the time the NDC lost power, it wasn't even finished. So President Mahama couldn't even use that executive wing.
All right, Comrade, thank you for that details.
I need to say something first before I go into this.
All right.
And I say so with some passion because I've been a journalist for the greater part of my over 60 years life now. And I spent closer to 30 years as a journalist. And over the weekend, a very despicable action happened. And I'm shocked that even for the media house, that's Joy FM, they sent reporters to go and cover the confirmation process for the district chief executive for Adan. And yesterday it was on air that invisible forces kidnapped journalists on legitimate duties. That you could even hear on the listen, they were shouting, I'm a journalist, they were dragging the person out. Beat them up, went and locked them up in some building. and treated everybody. Every people had to run helter-skelter. And then simple confirmation process for a DC. You see the level to which lawlessness, this monster culture they have planted in this country today is now taken. We're told that that's the last we heard. Yesterday at Adan, they struck again. And I have not heard the vehemence of Joy FM. And that is what shocks me. In especially protesting and writing and demanding to government action on this matter. I shudder to think what would have happened if this had happened under the NDC. I'm sure Joy FM would have made maximum capital out of it. Sammy, if you sell yourself for halfpenny, they'll buy you for nothing. I think that if on the altar of our partisan interests, we allow certain infractions that clearly are an impediment to free expression, that are an impediment to journalists carrying out their legitimate duties, the freedom of the media will from now always be a legitimate target for hoodlums such as has happened. I'm sure Joy FM should not be minded by their whatever orientation or partisan interest they have in this matter. But it's a breach of the professional duties of journalists, the right of journalists to pursue their legitimate duties without let or hindrance. And I'm sure that the entire media fraternity should stand up, the GJA, the National Media Commission, all journalists and friends of the media who are minded to ensure that the unfettered and vibrant free media that we have in Ghana is not curtailed. All of them must stand and speak up. And it's a very important thing I thought I should first indicate. So back to this, what do you call it? Cocoa board or guest house matter. You see, when you see people gathered for an outdooring, Sabi, it means it had been preceded by a birth. Mm-hmm. If there was no birth, there would be no gathering for an outdooring. You see, like Comrade Mutala pointed out, there had been this issue of the press conference by the current Cocoa Board chairman, Mr. Buahin Edu. The underlying factor is that we in the minority held a very successful press conference at Bodi in the Western region on cocoa matters. And it was to put in the public domain what the cocoa industry had been under President Mahama, and also to address certain falsehoods that had been perpetrated. You know, ever since MPP came, they have, like Comrade Mutala pointed out, there have been an orchestrated attempt to vilify and malign the administration of Dr. Opuni and to create the impression that it was a total mess. And there is this thing. Very great achievements that had been chalked up under Dr. Opuni and his administration have deliberately been obfuscated. And in this place, an attempt to plant a scandal-ridden administration. And that is what the MPP has done all along. You see, so it was this successful presentation at which, one, the NDC pointed out the record of its performance in the cocoa sector. And I'm happy that Comrade Mutala has addressed the issue eloquently. When the landlord has talked eloquently about his house, you don't ask the caretaker for confirmation. I'm sure he has said it very well, being with the cocoa board. But suffice it to say that under Dr. Puni and the NDC, important measures have been put not only to insulate the cocoa sector against even the vagaries of the international pricing mechanism, but also even to spare domestic production, increase domestic production. And it's mentioning one eloquent thing, which is shocking, that the MPP today is selling fertilizer that the NDC imported free of charge, and it is boldly even written, not for sale. Because cocoa farmers through the pricing arrangement have already paid for it. So those fertilizers are meant for the farmers who have already paid for it. So how do you sell something to somebody who has already paid for it? So what is happening under the NPP is nothing but thievery, naked daylight thievery, robbery of cocoa farmers for fertilizer that they have already sold. And I think they should not allow this naked thievery to go. Farmers must get up and demand that this must be gone into, and anybody who has paid for it, their money should be refunded to them. The NPP government must be made to cough the money that they have stolen from cocoa farmers for selling that fertilizer to them. They should not allow that to happen. There were also issues of the spraying, which he has talked about, free seedlings and others, all of which resulted in the 966,400 metric tons, closer to the record achievement under Professor Mills in 2011. So how would somebody who has messed up a cocoa industry be able to bring cocoa production up to that level? Because the NPP cannot claim that success. So ever since they came, what cocoa tree have they planted that has yielded any fruit for them to harvest and make that? They cannot. What measure, what spraying have they done? What have they done? The only thing they have done is to steal the fertilizers of farmers and sell it to them again. So I think that it was this successful pointing out of the attempt to vilify the Upuni regime and what the NDC had done that angered the chief executive. And Sami, this saying is always pregnant with meaning. That if somebody releases bad air on you and you are overzealous in your anger to retaliate, you will bring out the reality. That is what has happened to the Buahin Edu and the cocoa board. There is successful exposure by the minority at their press conference with this cocoa angered him so much that he was overzealous to retaliate. He was overzealous to come and do something to present another picture. And that's why he has soiled himself very badly and has become the object of derision and opprobrium. And so I think that it's already clear in the public domain that this guest house thing, they went and mentioned that President Mahama caused. In fact, first they said it was even he built. Yeah. They did not say he innovated. Yeah. The press conference was that President Mahama caused to be built a brand new guest house for his comfort. My brother, has a new guest house been built in Bole? They should show us. Maybe if there's another site where a new guest house has been built, they should show us. Apparently, this is a 1975 building. My brother, this one will even qualify for a UNESCO heritage site. An antiquity. 1975, it will qualify for a UNESCO antiquity. Is that a modern building? 1975. Can you see? And they're equating it with a new building that has been erected for the comfort of President Mahama. But people can't even fear God. Elementary. And people, they can lie to the point that they don't even fear God now. They can invoke things like this. It's so shameful. How many times, Sami, does President Mahama go to Bole? Yes, that's his hometown. He goes there as and when it's necessary. But to say that you are going to use millions of Ghana cedis to put up something for the comfort of somebody, it will presuppose that the person frequents the place in such a manner that it's something that he needs. In a year, for instance, how many times will he go? So, I mean, and anybody who knows the Mahama family knows that his family house, from the time of his father through this thing, have one of the best houses in Bole. Not today. They know it. And they know that the president himself has made his own investment in his house in Bole, where he comes and mostly he stays. So that was a palpable falsehood. You see, and why did they do that? Sami, they did it because, look, the MPP, after in the face of its abysmal performance, the massive unfettered corruption, the runaway nationwide lawlessness, fear and panic that has been created across the length and breadth of this country. And like Kofi said, today, many Ghanaians are complaining they cannot sleep. The best you can sleep is with one eye closed and the one eye open. Are you a rabbit? See, that is what they have reduced Ghana. So after all this, and the fact that they've managed to petrify, create a culture of fear in Ghanaians, that our safety and our freedom to move about and do everything have been curtailed. And more importantly, the disappointment of Ghanaians in their regime. They are now seeing that, hey, President Mahama is a threat. And I've said it that, look, Sammy, today, if a goat passes by, and they hear, MP people hear that the goat is called Mahama, I'm telling you, they will pursue it. They are petrified by the name Mahama. In the face of all this massive failure, they are afraid that Ghanaians will look back with nostalgia at President Mahama and the achievements of his government. And President Mahama has said it before he exited that posterity will be the best judge. We have not gone, we are just 10 months into this incompetent, lawless government. And we are beginning to see. Ghanaians are calling for President Mahama. They are saying that, look, under the Mahama government, we saw what happened. At least if for nothing, no Ghanaian had any cause to fear anything. You could roam, Sammy, and go up to 2 a.m. and go home and nothing happened to you. Today, broad daylight, even our security personnel, now they are not safe. Even though when the watchman needs a watchman, the landlord is in trouble. Sammy, even today, our security personnel, they themselves, they are not safe. Not only have they attacked soldiers, but police stations and that. Now we hear it every day. Police stations where even they go and keep suspect, MPP hoodlums will raid the police station. And policemen will flee. Can you believe that? Can you believe when a security man is fleeing for civilians? It tells you what state of the security your country is in. And so, I mean, that is sending a dangerous signal to the international community. No investor worth his salt will come and plant his money or put his money in an economy where there's no security. In an economy where even the police who are supposed to be guarding this themselves are not safe. In an economy where he knows that any group of hoodlums can mount an attack on his place and he has nobody to call to come and defend him and to defend the property. Even those lying flat on their backs, they can't see God. What about those face down? So, Sammy, this is the state of affairs that we have. And so the thinking is that find a way of injuring the image or bastardizing the integrity of President Mahama by tying him to a false project, and then tout how much it has cost the Ghanaian taxpayer to take care of the comfort of President Mahama, so that he'll be irreparably damaged.
All right.
You see, but Sammy, I've said it. Allah Almighty, in His infinite wisdom, has indicated that the seed He Almighty Allah has planted, not even the most devastating drought can destroy it. That is how President Mahama is.
All right.
And the MPP should be reminded that, you see, no matter how tall you are, you can't see tomorrow.
Thank you.
Let me tell you that those who lie in front of them, they will go and meet it. In the run-up to the 2016 elections, the lies told by the MPP, by President Nana Akufo-Addo, by Dr. Bawumia, and all their decisions, today, their lies are catching up with them. They are coming face to face with reality, Sammy. I heard not too long ago Dr. Bawumia saying that, now Muslims in mosques should be praying hard for the MPP. Governance is not an easy thing, it's difficult. Sammy, if a butterfly thinks it is a bird, it should wait until the wind rises.
Thank you, Alhaji ABA Fuseni, for your submission. It's always interesting listening to you with those proverbs spicing it. Professor Nino Idona.
We really not adhere to your 20 minutes allocation. I will just make it brief and leave the rest for Communication Brad. You know, MPP, NDC politics the saga continues. And as I always say, come 7th December 2020, is that right? The voters will speak. But be that as it may, I have before me on my receiver a Ghana Web News dated Wednesday, 1st November, and a statement attributable to Cocoa Board CEO Joseph Boahin Edu that Opuni Mahama depleted syndicated loan facility after losing power. And then the litany of what he meant was also stated that 1.8 billion US dollar loan credit facility for the 2016-17 cocoa purchases were projected for 850,000 metric tons. But at the time the MPP took office, they managed to only purchase 587,000 metric tons, meaning some money had been hidden somewhere. And went on, and then also revealed that peculiar to the loan utilization is the last drawdown of 400,000 US dollars effected on 20th December 2016, at the time the NDC had woefully lost the 2016 election, and so on. Then you also find another statement on the same network that Opuni will be going to court and that the docket had already been prepared, etc. Then you begin to read into the political ramification. If a former appointee who held a public office and it's alleged to have done something wrong, is it the chief executive officer of a board who makes that pronouncement? Is it not the Attorney General? Yeah. But you don't know the way things are being run. And then you have Kennedy Ajipon also saying that if you don't prosecute or jail Opuni, then forget about 2020. And then it's a docket to prosecute Stephen Opuni ready, Kennedy Ajipon, etc., etc. So once again, they will say those of us who are not in the or in the MPP NDC divide, what is happening? Then you come to this clear case of this Cocoa Research Institute guest house, which should be obvious. A physical edifice like a guest house, then it's attributable to President Mahama. The Cocoa Board operates under an act of parliament. And as you indicated, decisions are taken with the endorsement of the board. And so the chief executive with his management team cannot do otherwise. So did the records show that former President Mahama went and directed the way the board operated? These are the many questions that we need to ask. And you know, once again, let me punch this matter out, and I'll pursue this crusade. We are living in inauspicious moments. Things are not so good. Look, when you are coming from outside Accra, let me put it out, when you take the the Temamoto way, you see articulators. Some, of course, you know, second-hand engines, whining and grinding, cutting cocoa to Tema. We say we've rehabilitated the rail line to Tema Harbour. It just stops with passengers. Is that the best way to cut cocoa? When we were kids, I lived with my late grandfather at Nsawan and Mangwase. You see cocoa sheds. Go to Nsawan now. It's a pathetic sight. We are using the most expensive modes of transporting our cargo, including cocoa. And so the statement from the former president's office that, look, the myriad of challenges confronting the sector, I believe you will focus on them. This political slant, I don't think this was the way we envisaged this Fourth Republic. And we must be spared. If indeed somebody had committed any act of wrongdoing, due process must be followed. Why do you have a party functionary who is an MP in a constituency in Central Region, even say if you don't jail somebody, already trial has been completed? What is happening? But as I always say, the tomb, 7 December 2020, will speak. Kosi, take the rest.
Thank you, Professor Nino Douna, for your thoughts. Quite short and brief there. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I first heard about this controversy whilst I was driving to the office, and I was listening to the Gold Morning Show, and the headlines were being read, and the headline simply said that Cocoa Board had built a guest house for President Mahama. Indeed, I was quite very alarmed. Because if Cocoa Board had built a dwelling place for President Mahama, it wouldn't be a guest house. It would be simply a house. So when I heard the guest house, I thought that the president had now entered the hotel business. But I was wondering how he could have used the resources of the state to build a guest house for himself, given the fact that such an amount of money could not move out of government accounts without any trace. I mean, it would take a Houdini to do that. And I know that the president has many attributes, but those attributes do not include the attributes of Houdini, you know. So I was lost in the car, and I was saying, my goodness, what is happening? I knew certainly that something must be wrong with this story. Then it turned out, my first inquiry, I quickly got a copy of the paper and read. And then it turned out that yes, the claim was that the guest house had been built for the Cocoa Research Institute. I said, since when did President Mahama own the Cocoa Research Institute? There's a guest house for the Cocoa Research Institute and not President Mahama. Now, interestingly, it turns out that this whole thing about the president or the Cocoa Board building a guest house for President Mahama relates to the fact that the guest house was built in his hometown. I said, my goodness, where are we getting to? So tomorrow, if we build a road or rehabilitate a road in Chebi, we'll be doing it for President Akufo-Addo. The logic doesn't add up. And indeed, the last time I went to Kibi, the roads were quite bad. And I think that the roads in Kibi need to be repaired. Would we be doing that for President Akufo-Addo? And if we would not be building the roads in Kibi for President Akufo-Addo, how is a guest house for the Cocoa Research Institute in Bole be for President Mahama? It simply doesn't add up. So then we all started learning a lot more about this guest house. And it turns out that indeed the Cocoa Research Institute in Bole was built in 1975 when President John Mahama was a schoolboy. I mean, at a time when he had not even dreamt of national leadership. Indeed, that was the Acheampong era. It was in the Acheampong days that this research institute was built in Bole with a guest house. Now, I listened to some of the discussions on radio and so on. And some people were raising issues about how come that research facility was built at Bole. And in fact, they made it look like it was because the president comes from Bole that this facility was built at Bole. And then again, I went back and realized it's 1975. It had nothing to do with President Mahama. But even then, we do know that the Cocoa Board is also responsible for shea nut, cashew nut, and perhaps other crops. It included coffee at a certain stage and so on. So, therefore, it was proper and right, to have such a research institute established at Bole. Yesterday, I listened to a member of the New Patriotic Party, and I listened to him with Alhaji A.B.A. Husseini. And he was arguing fervently that, look, you can't find cashew and shell nut in Bole. And that if you are looking for areas where cashew and shell nut is concentrated, it is somewhere towards the west of Bole and so on.
Where is the west?
And then, Ebi, I hope you remember. Then I said, look, it's a research facility. It is not a facility for harvesting shea nut and cashew. It's about research. And indeed, you can do research into cocoa, cashew, and shea butter anywhere in the world. You can actually cite the research center in Antarctica. And so,
Cocoa Board has a facility in Tamale and Wa.
no problem. But I'm saying that when you cite your research center, does not have to be the area of production.
They have even facilities there.
No problem. Now, only last week, I was listening to the BBC, and they were establishing a research center, which is going to do some research on the exploration, the exploration of the universe. Mm. And the decision was taken that the research center should be based in a mine, underground mine, Because the argument then was that if you go deep down into the bowels of the earth, some micro activities that take place, which are likely to affect the research findings, would not be present there and so on. So they're actually doing research into space exploration, but they are doing the research underground in the belly of the earth. So it depends on what kind of research you want to do and so on. Now, if you have a research facility, researchers, human beings, scientists, will have to do the research. Those human beings, they eat, they drink, they sleep. So it is not unusual to have a research facility which has a place where people sleep, eat, and drink. It is not unusual at all. And I want to believe that this guest house was built and renovated for the scientists who will be going there and so on. Now, in the course of the week, I heard a journalist actually claim that he and 8 others slept in that guest house some 5 years ago. And Sami, I think it was on your show, that he and 8 others slept in that guest house 8 years ago. Now, let us even assume that President Mahama uses that guest house. Let us assume that he uses that guest house. If any one of us sitting around this table can use that guest house, why shouldn't he use the guest house? Because all of these guest houses are dotted all over the country, and you can actually go there. I mean, the University of Cape Coast has a guest house at Tesano. And I have put my guest there on several occasions. What is the problem? University of Ghana has a guest house. And only 2 weeks ago, we had a visitor coming from Nigeria. In fact, Chido Onuma, the writer Chido Onuma came. We put him in the University of Ghana guest house. Now, if our Nigerian comrade can stay in a University of Ghana guest house, why can't the president stay in a guest house of any other institution? The UDS has a guest house just by the police headquarters. And when my friends travel and come, sometimes they stay there and so on. What is the problem? So sometimes you sit back and you just wonder, what is happening? I mean, why? Do they take all of us to be idiots?
Because you know that they say we have sand in our eyes.
So what is the big deal even if the president stays there? Now, it turns out that at the time the renovation was partially finished, the president had to leave office. And that the guest house didn't even have furniture, and therefore the president could not have stayed there. So what is all this noise about? Sometimes it seems to me, and it only seems to me, sometimes it seems to me that there are some people who have decided that no matter what happens, they have to find fault with former President John Dramani Mahama. I mean, they have to, by any means possible, find fault with him. It seems to me that that is also related to the suspicion that he might run in 2020. So therefore, even things that are not connected with him, you know, I mean, the last time there was a story about somebody having stolen something really petty and so on. And I saw the headline, Mahama boy caught stealing. So by all means, they have to find a way of relating every bad thing to Mahama. You understand? Otherwise, where is the story in this? Then I've seen other publications which say that the guest house, and they say the guest house cost 8 million Ghana cedis. You know, I've seen the works which were done. The renovation included an extra 5 bedrooms. They were adding extra 5 bedrooms. They were adding driver's quarters and so on. And if you look at what was done, 8 million Ghana cedis, is that a big deal? What is wrong with us? I mean, what is really wrong with us? Is this how we're going to do our politics? And everything, I mean everything, must be reduced to a contest between NDC and NPP. So nothing makes sense again. If you're looking for anything that makes sense, you have to look for it within the context of NDC versus NPP, or nothing will make sense again. And if you look for the answers within the context of NPP NDC, then you can see that everything is about fooling people to get votes. Every fact must be twisted so that somebody loses votes or somebody gets votes. How can we live in a country like that? I mean, it's so sickening, it's unbelievable. So very sickening, it's unbelievable. You know, things happen in this administration, and you hear communicators of the NPP and saying that the president knows nothing about it. So and so did it by himself. If it happens in NDC, especially under Mahama must take the blame. What double standards? Clear double standards. And it's exceedingly worrying. I mean, today, I'm reading stories which say that Dr. Opuni is likely to face trial. Not that he's likely to face trial, that indeed he's going to face trial. You understand? And what is the source of the story? The source of the story is the current chief executive officer of Cocoa Board. First of all, the chief executive officer of Cocoa Board does not determine which cases will go to court. Indeed, it is only the Attorney General who has the right and power to determine which cases should go to court. And I'll be surprised if the Attorney General is briefing the head of the Cocoa Board about which cases are going to go to court and so on. And then I'm reading to find out why he's likely to go to court. You understand? This Ghana business. I'm reading why he's likely to go to court. And then listen, according to Mr. Edu, are you listening? According to Mr. Edu, Dr. Opuni, an appointee of ex-President John Mahama. Why? So by all means, bring Mahama into it. During his tenure, in some instances, resolved to cause financial waste to the state. That Dr. Opuni resolved to cause financial waste to the state. In any case, the English, what does it mean?
Resolved to cause. What is that?
Financial waste. What is financial waste?
Daily graphic.
Well, I don't like mentioning titles of newspapers, you know, so.
Daily guide.
Yeah.
Daily life.
No wonder.
Eh? He's alleged to have conspired with some top officials of Cocoa Board to siphon cocoa cash. What does that mean? So, Master, I beg, let's stop doing these things to ourselves. I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm hearing people in the NDC saying that this is what we should have done to them. And that is because we didn't do this to them that they won the election. So next time when we win power, we will do worse things to them. And what besides anybody who will plead for anybody and so on. Master, we should not be racing to the bottom. That will be a race to the bottom. We should be raising our act and raising standards rather than racing to the bottom. And in fact, if this is what the NDC would do, if it should win power, I will campaign against the NDC. Because what is happening now should not be repeated in the future. What is happening to some NDC appointees should never happen to Akufo-Addo's appointees. If we are dissatisfied with what is happening today, we ought to be dissatisfied with that if it's done tomorrow to people who have been appointed by Akufo-Addo. Let's raise the standards. The standards are falling and falling too low.
You see, I think
Yes, sir.
Kwesi's point is worth noting. As I always say, disorder cannot persist. And if these standards are really not what we expect, they wouldn't have the capacity to continue that way. So we should aim at what is good, because that is what will really bring development and prosperity to this country.
Thank you, Professor Nino.
Do you know they have asked contractors working on the cocoa roads to stop work? Yes. And what they have done, and I will state this question. We have 6 regions in Ghana that produce cocoa. Many people do not know that produce cocoa in Volta region. A lot of the rules they have asked that they should abandon were rules that were supposed to be done in Volta region. For me, the interest here is that during the elections, you had certain greedy individuals for their selfish interests told people don't vote for NDC, like you stated earlier, so that to do President Mahama. President Mahama is gone. What they are doing to all of us is that they don't look at NDC person to be this or that. They use a common brush to brush all of us. And Kwesi, the consequences of this is that any time at all the rules are going to be done, cost is going to increase.
Obviously.
Because some of them have started the work, they reach a stage that they couldn't afford to stop work. They asked all of them to stop work. That was what they did. All of them have actually stopped work. These were contracts that were duly awarded. So legally, you have no basis to ask them to stop. At the end of the day, they would have to do the work, and certainly cost is going to increase.
All right.
Just let me share this information about certain actions in Parliament. First and foremost, on this verbal diarrhea diplomat, Sibuatin, the minority is calling for the foreign minister to appear before the House this coming week to answer questions regarding his continuous stay in office. And I'm sure we intend to get to the very bottom of the matter, because with every passing minute, this country's image and integrity is going down the line, especially in the ranks of the international community. And then the second one is on what Comrade Mutala has said regarding these routes. There is a very real threat of the willful causation of financial loss, because this not financial waste. I mean that is a nebulous term. So you can see that contractors are working on it. It's not that the contractors have abandoned; they are on the roads working, and you go ask them to stop. Cocoa Board. I think this is a clear. But and I want the people of Western region, because that stoppage even applies to Western region. Boy Hinedu says he comes from Western region, the center of cocoa production now. Now in his own area, he's telling his people that Western region people don't deserve good roads. Western region people, listen to Boy Hinedu. He says that you don't deserve any good roads in the area.
Thank you very much, Honorable ABA Fuseni, for your final submission. Let me read a few of the text messages that came through, and then it will be checkout time for us here on Alhaji and Alhaji. From Kujuchumbuafu, he says, Why is anyone surprised at what that bigot said? How many times have I been on your show to reiterate to your listeners the character of the Dankwa Buzia tradition? They sincerely believe that they own this country. But it's not the worst offender. The president himself encapsulated their bigotry in his infamous Yena Kamfor exhortation to the ethnocentrism and bigotry. If you look at the spectrum of the NDC leadership today, how many of them have not made a call to ethnocentrism and bigotry? The painful truth, though, is that there are many who share his views. And Ghana for Yensempa, one day, let my political epitaph be written this. Here lies the man who told us who they were and what they espoused. Where they means Yanum. And that's from Kojo Chumbuafo. And those are a few of the final text messages I believe I got. Let me check if I had any further ones. Okay, Komla says, NPP believes Ghana or Ghanaians are dumb and will believe every lie they say. I won't blame them because if Ghanaians are not really dumb, they wouldn't have voted them into power. The current chief executive of Cocoa Board and the entire government with its followers don't even know how Cocoa Board also oversees the growth and research on cashew and coffee, which are abundant up north. The beautiful Golden Bean Hotel in Kumasi is also the product of Cocoa Board. That's from Prekese Kwame Aristocrat. Those are a few of the text messages that I got this morning. Finally, before I leave here, I think it's only appropriate I inform you, especially those who are interested in joining the Alliance for Responsible Citizens, to go on the Yentia demo, which will be happening on Tuesday, 14th November 2017. The demo will start from the Obra Sport at Seko at 8 a.m. to the following locations: the Flagstaff House, Parliament, the Press Center, which has been agreed upon with the Accra Police Command, following a court ruling against the police who had earlier tried to frustrate the demonstration. The members of the Yentia demo says, I should tell all Ghanaians that every one of you, especially you, if you are listening to us, should make it a point to join in that demonstration. It's about your freedom, it's about my freedom, it's about everybody's freedom. If it happens to all the media houses, 131 of them, where would you have your concerns addressed? So, make it a point to join the Yentia demo, which will happen on the 14th of November 2017. On that note, I say thank you to you for being a part of the show this morning. My name is Samuel Eshen. Production is being by Patrick Asfor Bodu. And my guests this morning who helped me to do justice to the issues are Mr. Kwesipa Jr., the managing editor of the Insight newspaper, Comrade Mutala Ibrahim Mohammed, a former MP for Nanton and Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Alhaji A.B.F. Hussein, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Sanarugu, and Professor Nino Edowona, Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana. We looked thoroughly at the calls by some section of Ghanaians that George A.C. Boateng, Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, must resign after he apologized for his divisive comments. Also, a look at the response by the office of the former President John Mahama to allegations of the construction of Cocoa Research Institute guest house. And we did not have time to look at the happenings in Togo, but I'm sure in due time we'll have the opportunity to look at these matters. God willing, next week Saturday we shall be here again for Alhaji and Alhaji. Stay blessed and enjoy your Saturday.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.